Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Shattered Reality. Wade Harmon adjusted his tie as he scanned the Chicago skyline from the 43rd floor conference room. His presentation materials were arranged on the polished table, each folder aligned at perfect right angles. 6 executives from Meridian Capital sat across from him, their faces betraying nothing as they reviewed his proposal for restructuring their Asian market investments. You're saying we can anticipate a 17% return? Martin Chun, the CFO, tapped his pen against Wade's meticulously prepared projection charts. Conservative estimate, Wade replied, leaning forward. The portfolio diversification strategy I've outlined minimizes exposure to market volatility while his phone vibrated in his pocket. Wade ignored it. This deal would cement his position at Blackstone Financial Partners. 3 years of groundwork, countless late nights away from Trevor and Zoe, all culminating in this meeting. The phone buzzed again, then a third time. "Excuse me," Wade said, glancing at the screen. "For missed calls from Oak Ridge Elementary School." A cold weight settled in his stomach. "I need to take this." Wade stepped into the hallway, the CFO's disappointed frown burning into his back. "Mr. Harmon." Principal Garcia's voice was tight with concern. "I've been trying to reach you. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Is there a problem with one of my children?" A pause. "Mr. Harmon, your wife hasn't picked up your children in 3 days." Wade's vision narrowed to a pinpoint. "That's impossible. My wife is with them. I'm in Chicago on business. No one has picked up Trevor or Zoe since Tuesday afternoon. They've been staying with our office administrator. I've alerted the authorities." The world seemed to tilt beneath Wade's feet. "I don't understand. Has anyone tried reaching Natalie?" "Multiple times. All calls go to voicemail. Officers are conducting a welfare check at your home." Wade checked his watch, 11:17 a.m. "I'll be on the next flight. Please tell my children I'm coming." He returned to the conference room, his face drained of color. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but I have a family emergency." Wade gathered his materials with trembling hands. "My associate will contact you to reschedule." Martin Chun stood. "Harmon, we flew in from Singapore for this meeting. Our board expects." "My children are missing," Wade said, his voice hollow. "Call my office if you need immediate assistance." The taxi ride to O'Hare passed in a blur of horrific scenarios. Car accident, kidnapping, home invasion. Wade tried calling Natalie 17 times during the 30-minute ride. Each call went straight to voicemail. "Nat, it's me. Where are the kids? Call me immediately." "Natalie, what's happening?" "The school called. Please call me back." "Nat, I'm getting on a plane. Whatever's wrong, we'll fix it. Just tell me you and the kids are safe." At the airport, Wade paid triple the ticket price for the next flight to San Francisco. 4 hours and 27 minutes. The longest flight of his life. He called his neighbor, Richard Delaney. "Have you seen Natalie or the kids?" Wade asked without preamble. "Not since Tuesday, I think." Richard sounded confused. "Everything okay? Can you check my house? The police should be there." "Hold on, let me look out the window." A pause. "Yeah, there's a patrol car in your driveway. Tell them I'm en route from Chicago." The remainder of the flight, Wade sat rigid in his seat, unable to eat or sleep. His mind raced through every conversation with Natalie over the past weeks. Had she seemed different? Stressed? They'd been planning a vacation to Hawaii in August. She'd been researching snorkeling tours for the kids just last weekend. When the plane landed, Wade bolted through the terminal, renting the first available car. The drive from San Francisco International to their Woodside home took 45 agonizing minutes. 2 police cars sat in the driveway of his Tudor-style home. A female officer met him at the door. "Mr. Harmon? I'm Officer Reyes. We've been trying to reach you. Where are my children?" Wade demanded. "They're safe. Child Protective Services has placed them in emergency foster care." The words struck him like physical blows. "Foster care? They're my children." "Sir, when minors are abandoned with no guardian present for over 72 hours, protocol requires protective custody until a parent or legal guardian can assume responsibility." "I want to see them now." Officer Reyes nodded. "I'll arrange it. But first, we need to understand the situation. When did you last speak with your wife?" 2 days ago. Wade struggled to focus. "Tuesday evening." She said everything was fine at home. And you've had no contact since? None. Officer, what happened here? Your wife appears to have left voluntarily. There's no sign of forced entry or struggle. The house is in disarray, but it appears selective, like someone packed in a hurry. Wade pushed past her into the house. The living room looked normal, but upstairs told a different story. Dresser drawers hung open in the master bedroom. Natalie's jewelry box sat empty on her vanity. Her side of the closet had been partially cleared out. A note was taped to the bedroom TV screen, which displayed a frozen image of Natalie's face. Press play. The note read in her flowing script. Wade's hand shook as he pressed the remote. The video started. Natalie sat in what appeared to be a luxury hotel room, wearing a black dress he'd never seen before. Her blonde hair was styled differently, shorter, with highlights. She looked directly into the camera, her blue eyes cold. Hello, Wade. By now you've probably realized I'm gone. I'm not coming back. She adjusted her position, crossing her legs. I should have left years ago, before the children. But I thought I could make it work. I was wrong. Wade sank onto the edge of the bed, disbelief paralyzing him. I've always hated being a mother, Natalie continued, her voice eerily calm. The constant demands, the noise, the mess, it suffocated me. My lover and I are starting fresh overseas with the $2 million from your retirement accounts. The kids were always your problem anyway. You're the one who wanted them. Wade barely registered Officer Reyes standing in the doorway behind him. Don't try to find me, Natalie said. By the time you see this, I'll be well beyond your reach. I've left the children's school and medical records in the filing cabinet. Trevor needs his inhaler when he plays sports. Zoe still wets the bed sometimes. She leaned closer to the camera, her expression hardening. I did love you once, Wade. But that wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. The video ended. Wade sat motionless, staring at the frozen final frame of his wife's face. Mr. Harmon? Officer Reyes touched his shoulder. I need to ask you some questions. Wade nodded numbly. When did you leave for Chicago? Monday morning. And your wife was supposed to be caring for your children while you were away? Yes. We discussed it. She said. Wade struggled to swallow. She said everything was under control. How old are your children? Trevor is 9. Zoe is 6. Officer Reyes made notes in her small book. Was there any indication your wife was planning to leave? None. Wade stood up suddenly. I need to see my kids now. I understand. But given the circumstances, there will be questions about your extended absence. Wade's head snapped up. My extended absence. I was on a business trip. My wife abandoned our children. Protocol requires a thorough investigation in cases of child endangerment. Child endangerment? I didn't endanger anyone. Wade's voice rose. My wife stole our money and abandoned our children while I was working to support our family. Officer Reyes maintained her professional demeanor. Mr. Harmon, I understand you're upset. Let's focus on getting your children returned to your custody. There's a process we need to follow. The process consumed the next 6 hours, statements, paperwork, calls to supervisors. The social worker assigned to the case, a stern woman named Ms. Winters, treated Wade with barely concealed suspicion. So you frequently travel for work? She asked, her pen poised above her form. I travel when necessary, Wade replied, fighting to keep his voice level. I'm a financial advisor. Sometimes that requires meeting clients in person. And who usually watches the children during these trips? My wife. Their mother. Ms. Winters pursed her lips. Were there any domestic issues before you left? Arguments? Tension? No. We've been married 11 years. We had plans for a family vacation next month. Mr. Harmon, people don't generally abandon their children without underlying issues. Her implication hung in the air between them. Are you suggesting I did something to drive my wife away? Wade leaned forward. My wife emptied our accounts and left the country with another man. She abandoned our children at school for 3 days. Yet somehow you're questioning me. I'm trying to establish the home environment these children will be returning to. It was after 9 p.m. when Wade finally received approval to collect Trevor and Zoe. He followed Ms. Winters' gray sedan to a modest ranch-style home in Redwood City. The foster parents, the Larsons, met them at the door. They're asleep, Mrs. Larson whispered. They've been through so much. Wade followed her to a small bedroom where Trevor and Zoe lay curled together on a twin bed, despite there being 2 beds in the room. Zoe clutched her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Flopsy, while Trevor's arm protectively draped over his sister even in sleep. The sight broke something inside Wade. He sank to his knees beside the bed, tears finally flowing freely. Trevor, Zoe. He touched their faces gently. Daddy's here. Trevor's eyes fluttered open first. Recognition, then disbelief, then a flood of emotion crossed his face. Dad, his voice cracked. I'm here, buddy. Wade gathered his son into his arms. The movement woke Zoe, who stared blankly for a moment before recognition dawned. Daddy. She launched herself at him with such force that Wade nearly fell backward. Where were you? Trevor's question came out as an accusation. Why didn't you come? I came as soon as I knew, Wade said, holding them both tightly. I'm so sorry. Zoe clung to his neck. Where's Mommy? Wade looked to Ms. Winters, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. We'll talk about that tomorrow, Wade said softly. Right now, we're going home. The drive home was silent save for Zoe's occasional sniffles. Trevor stared out the window, his face unreadable. Upon arriving, Wade carried a sleeping Zoe to her room, while Trevor trudged behind. Is Mom coming back? Trevor asked as Wade tucked the blankets around Zoe. Wade guided his son into the hallway. Trevor, your mom? She's gone away. For how long? Wade knelt to meet his son's eyes. I don't know yet, but I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to figure this out together. Trevor's face remained impassive. She said she might not come back. Wade froze. What do you mean? When? Tuesday, when she dropped us off at school. She hugged us really tight and said sometimes grown-ups have to follow their dreams and that you would take care of us now. The calculated cruelty of it staggered Wade. She'd planned to abandon them at school, knowing they'd be safe but also causing maximum trauma. Did she say anything else? Trevor shook his head. She was crying. Then she drove away in a car I didn't recognize. A man was driving. Wade guided Trevor to his room, helping him into bed despite the boy's protests that he wasn't tired. Try to sleep, Wade said, smoothing Trevor's dark hair, so like his own. I'll be right down the hall if you need me. After both children were settled, Wade returned to the master bedroom. He forced himself to search through Natalie's remaining belongings. In her desk, he found a folder containing bank statements he'd never seen before, accounts in her name only. Regular transfers dating back over a year, each just small enough to avoid triggering alerts. In the back of her closet, a shoebox contained documents bearing his signature. Paperwork he vaguely remembered signing during their date nights at home, when she'd bring a glass of wine and casual mention of just some account stuff that needs updating. The betrayal had been calculated, precise, and long in the making. Wade stared at the frozen image of Natalie on the TV screen, searching for clues he'd missed. The woman in the video was a stranger wearing his wife's face. He reached for the remote to delete the video, then stopped. Evidence. He needed to preserve everything. A soft sound from the doorway made him turn. Zoe stood clutching Mr. Flopsy, tears streaming down her face. Daddy, I had a bad dream. Wade scooped her up. It's okay, sweetie. Daddy's here now. I want Mommy, she whimpered against his shoulder. Wade carried her to her room, his heart shattering with each step. I know, Zoe. I know. He lay beside her in her small bed, stroking her hair until she fell back asleep. Only then did he allow the full weight of the day to crash over him. His wife gone. Their money stolen. His children traumatized. His career possibly in ruins after walking out on Meridian Capital. And somewhere in France, if the background in the video was any indication, Natalie was starting a new life with their money and some man she'd deemed more important than the children she'd carried, birthed, and raised for 9 years. Wade stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars on Zoe's ceiling, stars he'd helped her place to form actual constellations rather than random patterns. Ursa Major, Orion, Cassiopeia, celestial navigation points, his father had called them. Ways to find your way home when all other systems failed. Wade's jaw clenched as rage finally cut through the shock and disbelief. He would find a way through this darkness. He would rebuild their lives. And someday, somehow, he would make Natalie face the consequences of what she'd done. The first hint of dawn was breaking when Zoe whimpered in her sleep. Wade tightened his arm around her. It's okay, he whispered. Daddy's here. Daddy will always be here. Chapter 2. The Ruins of Trust. The alarm blared at 5:30, yanking Wade from a fitful sleep on the living room couch. His neck ached from the awkward angle, and his mouth felt like sandpaper. 3 weeks had passed since Natalie's disappearance, and he still couldn't bring himself to sleep in their bed. He silenced the alarm and rose quietly, navigating the unfamiliar obstacle course of children's toys that now cluttered the usually pristine living room. Structure and routine. That's what the child psychologist had emphasized. Children need consistency after trauma. Wade started the coffee maker and pulled out ingredients for breakfast. Pancakes for Zoe, scrambled eggs for Trevor. The routine had become his anchor in a world turned upside down. The sound of small feet padding down the hallway made him turn. Zoe stood in the doorway, Mr. Flopsy dangling from one hand, her blonde hair a tangled mess. "Is today a school day?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Yes, sweetie. Did you sleep okay?" She shook her head, bottom lip trembling. "I wanted to check if you were still here." The words pierced Wade's heart. "Come here." He knelt and opened his arms. Zoe ran to him, burying her face against his shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere, remember? We talked about this." "Mommy said that too," Zoe whispered. Wade had no answer for that. Instead, he lifted her onto a kitchen stool and placed a glass of orange juice in front of her. "Want to help me make pancakes?" Zoe nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Go wake your brother first," Wade said. 15 minutes until breakfast. As Zoe scampered off, Wade checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Lynn, his boss. 2 from the children's school counselor. 1 from an unknown number. He'd return them after dropping the kids at school. Trevor shuffled into the kitchen, his face a mask of indifference that had become his default expression. "I'm not hungry. You need to eat something, buddy. Big math test today, remember?" Trevor shrugged and sat at the table, picking at a loose thread on his sweatshirt sleeve. "Did you finish your homework?" Wade asked, setting a plate of eggs in front of his son. "It's stupid anyway." Trevor pushed the eggs around with his fork. "Why do I have to go to school? You're home all day." Wade sighed. "We talked about this. I have to go back to work soon, and you need to be in school." When what? When are you going back to work?" Trevor's eyes finally met his, challenging. "Are you going to leave us too?" Wade abandoned the pancake batter and sat across from his son. "Trevor, look at me. I am never going to leave you. Not ever. I've taken time off work to be with you and Zoe, but eventually, I'll need to go back. That doesn't mean I'm leaving you. That's what Mom said when you went to Chicago." Trevor's voice had gone flat. "She said you cared more about work than us." The accusation hung in the air. Before Wade could formulate a response, Zoe bounced back into the kitchen. "Can my pancakes have chocolate chips?" The moment was broken. Wade forced a smile. "Sure thing, princess. Let me find them." Breakfast passed in strained silence punctuated by Zoe's chatter. After clearing the plates, Wade supervised teeth brushing and backpack packing, then loaded both children into his car for the drive to Oak Ridge Elementary. "Remember, Ms. Winters is coming for another home visit today," Wade reminded them at drop-off. "So come straight to the office after school, and I'll pick you up." Trevor nodded without looking at him. Zoe clung to Wade's leg. "Do I have to go?" she whispered. Wade crouched to her level. "Yes, but I'll be right here at 3 o'clock. I promise." "Pinky promise?" She held out her tiny finger. "Pinky promise." Wade linked his finger with hers, then kissed her forehead. "Be brave, Zoe Bear." He watched them walk into the school, Zoe glancing back 3 times before disappearing through the doors. Only then did Wade return to his car and allow himself a moment of unguarded emotion, pressing his forehead against the steering wheel as he took several deep breaths. The shopping list on his phone reminded him of the day's errands. Groceries first, then the bank to discuss the mortgage situation, then home to clean before Ms. Winters arrived. At the supermarket, Wade moved through the aisles, consulting the meal plan he'd created based on the children's preferences. Chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, apple slices with peanut butter, food Zoe would actually eat. Turkey sandwiches and string cheese for Trevor's lunch. At the checkout, Wade's credit card declined. He tried another. Declined again. "Sorry," he mumbled to the cashier, a teenage boy who looked thoroughly bored. "Let me try one more." The third card worked, but just barely. The balance remaining made Wade's stomach knot with anxiety. On the drive home, he called the customer service numbers for the declined cards. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harmon, but this account was closed on April 17th, the first representative informed him. "That's impossible. I didn't close it. The request came through our online portal using your login credentials and was verified with your security questions." Wade's grip tightened on the steering wheel. My wife has my login information. We need to reopen the account immediately. I'm afraid that's not possible without a joint appearance from both account holders, sir. The second call revealed the same situation. By the time Wade pulled into his driveway, his blood pressure had skyrocketed. Inside, he went straight to his home office and began pulling financial records from the filing cabinet. What he found confirmed his worst fears. Natalie hadn't just taken his retirement funds. She'd systematically dismantled their entire financial life. Health insurance canceled. Credit cards maxed out, then closed. Home equity line of credit drained to its limit. Loans taken out in his name using forged signatures. He was ruined. The doorbell interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Wade glanced at his watch, 11:30 a.m. Ms. Winters wasn't due until 4. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair and opened the door to find a woman in her early 40s with chin-length brown hair and sharp green eyes. Mr. Harmon? I'm Christine Delacruz. She offered her hand. I was Natalie's friend. Wade stared at her for a moment before recognition dawned. Right. The interior designer. You worked on the Morgan's house down the street. May I come in? I think we should talk. Wade hesitated, then stepped aside. Christine entered, her gaze sweeping the living room with its scattered toys and breakfast dishes still on the coffee table. Sorry about the mess, Wade said automatically. Please, don't apologize. She sat on the edge of the sofa. I can only imagine what you're going through. Wade remained standing, arms crossed. What can I do for you, Ms. Delacruz? Christine, please. She placed her purse beside her. I've been trying to process what Natalie did. It doesn't make sense. Tell me about it, Wade muttered. No, I mean it really doesn't align with the Natalie I knew. Christine leaned forward. We've been friends for 5 years. She adored those children. Wade laughed without humor. Apparently not. Something changed about 8 months ago, Christine continued. She became secretive, distracted. I assumed it was just stress. She mentioned you were working a lot, traveling more. Wade felt a familiar flare of defensive anger. My job requires travel sometimes. We discussed it before I took the position. I'm not judging you, Christine said quickly. I'm trying to piece together what happened. Did you know she started attending charity functions alone during that time? Events she'd previously skipped or attended with you. The implication hung in the air. Wade sank into an armchair, suddenly exhausted. She met someone. Christine nodded reluctantly. A man named Dominic Reeves. He was on the board of the Children's Hospital Foundation. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. I met him once at a gala in October. The one you missed because of the Denver client emergency. Wade vaguely recalled the night. A last-minute crisis with a major account that had kept him on conference calls until dawn. Natalie had been understanding, or so he'd thought. What was he like? Wade asked, not sure he wanted to know. Charming. Sophisticated. Christine hesitated. Predatory, looking back on it. He focused on Natalie completely, as though no one else in the room existed. I remember thinking it was inappropriate how attentive he was to a married woman. Did you say anything to her? Christine's expression clouded with guilt. I asked if everything was okay between you two. She said you were both fine, just busy. I should have pushed harder. Wade stood abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the manicured lawn he'd been too distracted to maintain lately. Weeds sprouted between the pavers of the garden path. Why are you here, Christine? Because I failed as a friend, she replied quietly. To both of you. And because I found something you should see. She removed a folded paper from her purse and handed it to Wade. It was a newspaper clipping from a small Oregon publication, dated 3 years earlier. The headline read, Local financial advisor missing after wife cleans out accounts. Wade scanned the article, his blood running cold. The details matched his situation. A professional man, a seemingly happy marriage, a wife who disappeared with a substantial sum, accusations of domestic issues that had forced her to flee. The man's name was Gerard Phillips, Christine said. After reading about what happened to you, I did some digging. 2 years before that, a similar case in Santa Barbara. Both women were last seen with a man matching Dominic's description, though he used different names. Wade stared at her. You're saying this is a pattern? That he targets women in specific types of marriages? Affluent ones, Christine confirmed. Where the husband has significant assets but travels frequently for work. A certain type of wife, too. Beautiful, slightly bored, married young before establishing her own identity. Wade thought back to his first meeting with Natalie 12 years ago. She'd been 22, a receptionist at the investment firm where he'd just been hired. He'd been 30 and already climbing the corporate ladder. Within 6 months, they were engaged. The first victim, the one in Santa Barbara, Robert Keller, killed himself after his wife left, Christine said softly. The note said he couldn't bear the public humiliation or the loss of his children. His children? Wade's head snapped up. She took them with her. The article said she had documented years of emotional abuse to build a case for sole custody. Wade felt sick. And the Oregon man, Phillips, eventually found and arrested for trying to track down his wife. She'd filed a restraining order based on claims he'd threatened her before she left. The implications crystallized in Wade's mind. So that's next. False abuse claims. Christine nodded grimly. Probably already in motion. Natalie began telling me stories last year about your controlling behavior. I didn't believe her. It contradicted everything I'd observed over the years, but she was very convincing. Wade leaned against the wall, suddenly dizzy. Why are you telling me this? Because I was wrong to doubt you. Christine stood. And because you need to protect yourself and those children. Dominic Reeves is dangerous. Not physically violent, utterly ruthless. He destroys lives for profit. The doorbell rang again, startling them both. Wade checked his watch, still hours before Ms. Winters was due. Are you expecting someone? Christine asked. Wade shook his head and moved to the window, pulling back the curtain slightly. A delivery truck sat in the driveway, a man in uniform holding a package at the door. Just a delivery, Wade said, relieved. He opened the door and signed for the small box, bringing it back to the living room. I should go, Christine said, gathering her purse. I've overstayed. No. Wade placed the package on the coffee table. I appreciate your honesty. And the warning. Christine paused at the door. There's something else you should know. Natalie told me the children were the only mistake in her life. At the time, I thought she was just venting after a difficult day, but now, I'm not sure she ever truly bonded with them, especially Trevor. The words hit Wade like a physical blow. Why Trevor specifically? She said he was too much like you. Analytical, quiet, always watching. It unnerved her. Christine looked genuinely pained. I'm sorry. I should have seen what was happening. After Christine left, Wade sat motionless on the couch, staring at the newspaper clipping. The parallels were too precise to be coincidental. Dominic Reeves didn't just seduce unhappy wives. He specifically targeted families where his particular form of destruction would yield maximum profit. The package on the coffee table caught his eye. He hadn't ordered anything recently. Picking it up, he examined the label. No return address, just his name and home address in typed text. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. Thought you might want these memories. A friend. Wade plugged the drive into his laptop, scanning it first with antivirus software before opening the contents. It contained dozens of photos. Natalie and a dark-haired man at restaurants, on a yacht, entering hotel rooms. The dates in the metadata spanned 8 months. The last folder contained surveillance footage from inside an upscale hotel suite. Wade's finger hovered over the play button, his stomach churning. Did he really want to see this? He closed the laptop without playing the video. Some knowledge wasn't worth the damage it would inflict. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Wade cleaned the house, prepared dinner, and reviewed files from work that Lynn had emailed with an increasingly urgent tone. Ms. Winters arrived precisely at 4. Her expression pinched as she conducted her inspection. The children seemed to be adjusting, she noted reluctantly, making marks on her clipboard. Though I'm concerned about Trevor's withdrawal and Zoe's separation anxiety. They're in therapy twice a week, Wade replied. Dr. Torres says they're processing the abandonment as expected. Ms. Winters pursed her lips. Mr. Harmon, I received a concerning call yesterday. Wade tensed. About. The caller wished to remain anonymous, but provided detailed accounts of volatile behavior in your home prior to your wife's departure. Allegations of controlling patterns, verbal intimidation, financial restrictions. There it was, the next phase of Natalie's plan, right on schedule. That's categorically false, Wade said evenly. My wife left with a man she'd been seeing for months. She emptied our accounts and abandoned our children while I was on a business trip. The caller suggested your frequent absences were a form of emotional abandonment that drove your wife to desperate measures. Wade's patience snapped. My frequent absences paid for this house, their education, and the luxury lifestyle my wife apparently couldn't bear to leave behind when she ran off with her lover. Would you like to see the financial evidence of her theft? The credit cards she maxed out in my name? The loans she forged my signature on? Ms. Winters regarded him impassively. Mr. Harmon, aggression doesn't help your case. Wade forced himself to take a deep breath. I apologize. This situation has been challenging. He met her eyes directly. My priority is my children's well-being. Whatever issues existed between Natalie and me, abandoning a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old at school with no explanation is inexcusable. Ms. Winters made another note. I understand you're still sleeping on the couch. The children have nightmares. I want to be easily accessible if they need me during the night. It wasn't the whole truth. Wade couldn't bear to sleep in the room where Natalie's video played on a loop, her cold eyes dismissing the family she'd discarded. Before Ms. Winters could respond, the front door opened, and Trevor walked in, followed by Zoe, who was being led by her kindergarten teacher, Ms. Paulson. Mr. Harmon? Ms. Paulson's expression was gentle but concerned. Could we speak privately for a moment? Wade glanced at Ms. Winters, who nodded tersely. The children and I will wait in the kitchen. Once they were alone, Ms. Paulson spoke in hushed tones. There was an incident today. Zoe had an accident during story time. Wade's brow furrowed. An accident? She wet herself, Ms. Paulson clarified. Apparently, the substitute teacher at lunch didn't allow her to call you as she usually does. By afternoon, she became extremely anxious and couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. Wade closed his eyes briefly. I see. The other children were unkind. You know how kindergartners can be. Was she very upset? Ms. Paulson hesitated. She refused to speak afterward. Just sat holding that rabbit of hers until dismissal. I thought you should know. After thanking Ms. Paulson and seeing her out, Wade returned to the kitchen where Ms. Winters was attempting to engage Trevor in conversation. The boy sat stonily at the table, answering in monosyllables. Zoe ran to Wade the moment he appeared, wrapping her arms around his legs. Can we have pizza for dinner? She asked, her voice higher than usual, a sign of stress Wade had come to recognize. Sure, Zoe Bear. He stroked her hair, noticing she'd changed into her spare clothes kept in her cubby. Ms. Winters gathered her materials. I'll be following up next week, Mr. Harmon. In the meantime, please continue the therapy sessions as scheduled. After she left, Wade knelt beside Zoe. Ms. Paulson told me what happened at school. Do you want to talk about it? Zoe's lower lip trembled. Maddie said only babies wet their pants. That wasn't very kind of Maddie. I needed to hear your voice, Zoe whispered. Like you promised. But Ms. Johnson said I couldn't call you because it wasn't an emergency. A tear slid down her cheek. I tried to be brave. Wade gathered her into his arms. You are brave, Zoe. So brave. Trevor, who had been silently observing, abruptly stood up. I have homework. He stalked off to his room, slamming the door behind him. Wade ordered pizza as promised, then helped Zoe with her simple kindergarten worksheet while attempting to coax Trevor from his room. The boy emerged only for dinner, eating mechanically before returning to his self-imposed isolation. After tucking Zoe in with extra assurances that he'd be just down the hall all night, Wade knocked softly on Trevor's door. Homework done? He asked, poking his head in. Trevor lay on his bed, a book open beside him. Yeah. Wade sat on the edge of the bed. Want to talk about school today? No. Okay. How about we watch a movie this weekend? Your choice. Trevor shrugged. Whatever. Wade studied his son's profile, so like his own, people often remarked on it. The same determined jaw, the same intense dark eyes. But there was something new there now, a hardness that no 9-year-old should possess. Trevor, I know this is hard. I miss Mom too. No, you don't. Trevor's voice was cold. You're glad she's gone. The accusation struck Wade silent for a moment. Why would you think that? Because you're not looking for her. Trevor finally turned to face him. If you really wanted her back, you'd be trying to find her. Wade chose his words carefully. Your mother made a choice, Trevor. She decided to leave. I can't force her to come back. You didn't even try? Trevor sat up, his face flushed with anger. You just let her go. It's not that simple. I heard Ryan Feldman's parents talking at pickup yesterday. Trevor continued, his voice rising. They said Mom left because you worked too much and never paid attention to us. They said you drove her away. Wade fought to keep his own anger in check. That's not true, Trevor. Your mother and I had problems, but I never stopped caring for our family. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they're supposed to protect. That's what your mother did. If you cared, you wouldn't have gone to Chicago. Trevor hurled the book across the room. It hit the wall with a thud. You left first. You always leave. The outburst hung in the air between them. Wade reached for his son, but Trevor jerked away, turning his face to the wall. Get out, he whispered. Just get out. Wade stood, his heart breaking all over again. I love you, Trevor. Nothing will ever change that. There was no response. Wade quietly closed the door and made his way downstairs to the couch that had become his bed. He pulled out his phone and opened the email from Lynn, skimming the increasingly concerned messages about client accounts he'd been neglecting. The phone rang in his hand, his colleague, Mike DeSantos. Harmon, where the hell have you been? Lynn's about to have an aneurysm. Wade rubbed his eyes. Family crisis. I emailed her. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. Look, man, I'm sympathetic, but Meridian Capital is threatening to pull their accounts. Lynn needs you on a call tomorrow morning, or she'll have to reassign your portfolio. I can't just. Wade, Mike's voice softened. I get it. I heard about Natalie. That's beyond rough. But the firm can't carry you indefinitely. We've covered as much as we can. Wade stared at the ceiling, the weight of competing responsibilities crushing him. What time is the call? 9 a.m. I've sent the briefing materials to your email. After hanging up, Wade opened his laptop, forcing himself to focus on the financial documents. The numbers swam before his eyes, meaningless in the face of his personal catastrophe. Upstairs, a small cry pierced the silence. Zoe's voice drifted down the stairs. Daddy. Wade closed the laptop. Work would have to wait. His children needed him now. Coming, Zoe Bear, he called, climbing the stairs. Daddy's right here. Chapter 3, The Decision. For months after Natalie's disappearance, Wade sat at the kitchen table surrounded by past due notices. The mortgage was 2 months behind. Blackstone Financial had placed him on unpaid leave after he'd botched the second attempt at the Meridian Capital presentation. The children's therapy sessions, not covered by insurance since Natalie had canceled their policy, cost $400 weekly. He'd sold his Audi and was now driving a 10-year-old Honda. The Rolex Natalie had given him on their 10th anniversary, paid for, he now realized, with his own money, had fetched enough to cover last month's mortgage. Wade's laptop chimed with an incoming email. He almost ignored it, assuming it was another creditor. The sender stopped him cold, natalieharmon@gmail.com. His finger hovered over the touchpad. Part of him wanted to delete it unread. Instead, he clicked. The subject line read simply, "Worth it." The email contained no text, just an attached photo. Wade stared at the image, Natalie and a dark-haired man, Dominic, presumably, lounging on a white yacht. Azure water stretched behind them. Natalie wore an emerald bikini that Wade had never seen before, sunglasses perched on her head, a champagne flute raised toward the camera. Dominic's arm was draped possessively around her shoulders, his smile smug. The caption beneath the photo read, "Worth every penny of your money. Thanks for funding our dreams." Wade slammed the laptop closed and pushed away from the table, pacing the kitchen. For months of struggling to rebuild their lives, of holding Trevor and Zoe through nightmares, of explaining to increasingly skeptical friends why Natalie had needed space, of fighting the whispers about what he might have done to drive her away. And she was day drinking on a yacht in what appeared to be the Mediterranean. His phone rang. Dr. Torres, the children's therapist. Mr. Harmon, do you have a moment? Wade glanced at the clock, 2:15 p.m. He needed to leave soon to pick up the kids. Is something wrong? He asked. Not wrong, exactly, but I wanted to discuss Trevor's progress. Dr. Torres's voice was measured as always. He's still exhibiting significant signs of depression and anger, particularly around the subject of his mother. Have you considered a more intensive therapy program? Wade pinched the bridge of his nose. What would that entail? 3 sessions weekly instead of 2, possibly with an additional family component where you and Zoe participate. The cost? A brief pause. It would be about 50% more than your current arrangement. Money he didn't have. Let me see what I can do. After hanging up, Wade reopened the laptop, forcing himself to look at the taunting image again. Something about the backgrounds caught his attention, a distinctive coastline. He maximized the photo and examined it more closely. A flag flew on the yacht's stern. French. and the distinctive buildings in the background. Wade opened a new browser tab and searched for Marseille Harbor. The images matched. They were in southern France. Acting on instinct, Wade began searching news archives from the region. His French was rusty, a requirement from his military intelligence days, but adequate for basic research. He found nothing about Natalie or Dominic specifically, but several mentions of a new luxury travel agency catering to high-end clients, Exclusive Journeys. The website was sleek and professional, featuring exotic destinations and bespoke experiences. No mention of the owners, just vague references to industry veterans with over a decade of experience in luxury hospitality. Wade dug deeper, using techniques from his military days to access registration documents. There it was, Exclusive Journeys, registered to Dominic Reeves and Natalie Spencer. Spencer, not Harmon. She'd reverted to her maiden name. The research consumed him until the school reminder alarm jolted him back to reality. He rushed to pick up the children, arriving just as the dismissal bell rang. Trevor emerged first, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his expression guarded as always. Zoe followed minutes later, clutching a piece of artwork. "Daddy, look what I made." She thrust the paper at him, a family drawing. 3 stick figures, a tall one labeled Dad, a medium one labeled Trevor, and a small one labeled me. No mother figure. "It's beautiful, Zoe Bear." Wade knelt to her level. "Should we hang it on the refrigerator?" She nodded eagerly, then glanced at Trevor, who was already walking toward the parking lot. "Trevor got in trouble today," she whispered loudly. Wade stood. "What happened?" Zoe shrugged dramatically. "He punched Jason Mercer at recess." Ms. Garcia took him to her office. Wade caught up to Trevor, who had reached the car and stood waiting impassively. "Want to tell me what happened today?" Wade asked, unlocking the doors. Trevor slid into the back seat without answering. Wade helped Zoe with her booster seat, then got in and turned to face his son. "Trevor, we need to talk about this." "No, we don't." Trevor stared out the window. "It's handled. I have detention tomorrow. Hitting another student isn't acceptable, no matter what happened." Trevor's gaze snapped to Wade's. "He said Mom left because I'm weird. That she didn't want to be around me anymore." His voice cracked slightly. "So I hit him." Wade felt a surge of protective rage, quickly followed by helplessness. How could he admonish Trevor for defending himself against such a cruel statement, especially when the wounds were still so raw? "Violence isn't the solution," Wade said finally. "But I understand why you were upset. What Jason said was cruel and untrue." "How do you know it's untrue?" Trevor challenged. "She left. She doesn't call. She doesn't care." Wade had no adequate response. They drove home in silence, broken only by Zoe's occasional comments about her day. At home, Wade supervised homework while preparing dinner. Pasta with Jared sauce, the kind of simple meal that had become their staple as his culinary skills remained basic. After dinner, while the children watched a movie, Wade returned to his research. The more he dug into Dominic Reeves, the more disturbing the pattern became. Using specialized search tools left over from his intelligence work, Wade uncovered newspaper articles about 2 families Dominic had previously destroyed. The first, Robert Keller of Santa Barbara, had indeed committed suicide after his wife left with both their money and their children. Court records showed she had constructed an elaborate fiction about emotional abuse, complete with statements from witnesses who later couldn't be located for the wrongful death suit filed by Keller's parents. The second victim, Gerard Phillips of Bend, Oregon, had been arrested for violating a restraining order after attempting to confront his wife at a restaurant where she was dining with Dominic. Phillips had lost his accounting practice, his reputation, and eventually his home. A recent article mentioned him living in his car while working as a delivery driver. Each case followed the same pattern: a successful professional man with significant assets, a wife who felt overlooked or underappreciated, a calculated seduction by Dominic, and a devastatingly comprehensive financial and reputational destruction. The doorbell interrupted Wade's research. He glanced at the clock, 7:45 p.m. They weren't expecting anyone. Christine Delacruz stood on the porch, her expression grim. "May I come in?" Wade ushered her inside. "The kids are watching a movie in the den." Christine nodded, following him to the kitchen. "I won't stay long. I just thought you should know what Natalie's been saying." Wade braced himself. "More abuse allegations?" "Worse." Christine sank into a chair. She's contacted several of our mutual friends claiming you were controlling and emotionally abusive throughout your marriage. She's painting herself as a domestic violence survivor who escaped with the children's best interests at heart. Wade stared at her. The children are here. With me. She's saying you manipulated the authorities into giving you custody because of your military background and connections. That the children are in danger, but she can't return to help them because she fears for her safety. The calculated malice of it staggered Wade. And people believe this. Christine's expression was pained. Some do, especially those who only knew you casually. Natalie was always charming, always the perfect mother in public. What about the fact that she abandoned our children at school for 3 days? Wade's voice rose despite his effort to control it. What about the video she left gloating about taking my money? She's saying you fabricated that she left the children with a neighbor who was supposed to take them to school, but must have forgotten. That you manipulated the evidence to gain sympathy and custody. Wade pressed his palms against his eyes. The scope of Natalie's deception was breathtaking. Every defense he could offer had been preemptively undermined. There's more, Christine said quietly. She's filing for divorce. The papers are being drawn up by a law firm in Marseille. She's seeking alimony and child support, claiming the children are with you temporarily while she establishes a safe home for them abroad. Wade's laugh was hollow. She abandoned them. Stole $2 million. And she wants me to pay her. It's about destroying you completely, Christine said. Dominic's pattern is thorough. He won't stop until you've lost everything. Assets, reputation, and eventually, possibly, the children. Wade's head snapped up. That will never happen. I hope not. Christine stood. But you need to prepare. This is going to get uglier before it's over. After Christine left, Wade returned to the den where Trevor and Zoe were still watching their movie. He stood in the doorway, observing them. Trevor with his serious profile, so like Wade's own. Zoe with her mother's blonde curls, but, thankfully, none of her callousness. What would happen to them if Natalie succeeded in taking them? If they were uprooted again, this time to another country, to live with the woman who had abandoned them and the man who had helped orchestrate their family's destruction? The movie ended, and Zoe noticed him standing there. Daddy, can I have ice cream? Not tonight, sweetie. It's almost bedtime. Zoe pouted but didn't argue. The fight had gone out of her these past months, replaced by a persistent anxiety that manifested in her reluctance to let Wade out of her sight and frequent physical complaints, stomachaches, headaches, mysterious pains that Dr. Torres attributed to emotional distress. Teeth brushing time, Wade announced. Trevor, can you help Zoe while I clean up down here? Trevor nodded, taking his sister's hand. Come on, Zoe. Race you upstairs. Their footsteps thundered on the stairs, a rare moment of normalcy that made Wade's throat tighten. He gathered dishes from the coffee table, his mind racing. Christine's warning echoed in his thoughts. This wouldn't end until he'd lost everything. Unless he fought back. After tucking in both children, with extra reassurances for Zoe that yes, he would leave her night light on, and no, he wouldn't go anywhere while she was sleeping, Wade returned to his laptop. He opened a new browser window and typed in a name he hadn't searched in years, Jackson Jack Winters. Jack had been part of Wade's unit in military intelligence, a specialist in electronic surveillance and close-quarters defense. They'd lost touch after Wade transitioned to civilian life, but Jack had always been resourceful. If anyone could help Wade navigate this nightmare, it would be Jack. An hour of searching yielded a contact. Jack apparently ran a private security firm in San Diego. Wade sent a brief, carefully worded email, then leaned back, debating his next move. His phone chimed with a voicemail notification. Wade frowned. He hadn't heard it ring. The number was blocked, but the message was unmistakably Natalie's voice. Trevor's teacher emailed about his issues. Can't you handle anything right? Her tone was contemptuous. Maybe if you'd been a better father, I wouldn't have needed to leave. Do us all a favor and just give up. You're clearly not cut out for this parenting thing alone. Wade deleted the message, his hands shaking with rage. How dare she critique his parenting when she had abandoned her children without a backward glance? When they woke crying for her night after night while she lounged on yachts and built a new life with their stolen money. He checked on the children again. Trevor slept fitfully, his face troubled even in sleep. Zoe had kicked off her covers as usual, one arm wrapped tightly around Mr. Flopsy. Wade gently tucked the blanket around her, marveling at the innocence that somehow persisted despite everything. Back downstairs, Wade poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, a rare indulgence these days, and sat in the darkness of the living room. The enormity of what they faced crashed over him. He was running out of money. His professional reputation was in tatters. Social services still watched him with suspicion. And now Natalie was laying the groundwork to potentially take the children. His phone chimed with an email notification. Jack had responded already. Harmon, good to hear from you. Sounds like you're in deep. I'm in SF next Tuesday. Hilton by the airport, 8 p.m. We'll talk. For days away. Wade would have to hold things together until then. The following days passed in a blur of routine, school drop-offs and pickups, homework supervision, therapy appointments. Trevor served his detention without complaint. Zoe cried during her therapy session, asking Dr. Torres why her mommy didn't love her anymore. Tuesday evening arrived. Wade arranged for Mrs. Delaney from next door to watch the children, promising to return by 10. Trevor eyed him suspiciously as he put on a jacket nicer than his recent attire. Where are you going? He asked. To meet an old friend, Wade replied. Just for a couple of hours. Trevor's expression darkened. You said you wouldn't leave us. The accusation cut deep. I'm not leaving you, Trevor. I'm going to a meeting and coming right back. Mrs. Delaney has my cell number, and I'll answer immediately if you need me. Whatever. Trevor turned away. It's not like it matters anyway. Wade knelt beside his son. Hey, look at me. He waited until Trevor reluctantly met his eyes. It matters. You matter. Everything I'm doing is to protect you and Zoe. I need you to trust me a little longer. Something flickered in Trevor's eyes, not quite trust, but perhaps a willingness to consider it. 2 hours, he said finally. Then you come back. 2 hours, Wade promised. Cross my heart. The Hilton was 30 minutes away in evening traffic. Wade arrived early and secured a booth in the back corner of the bar, positioning himself to see the entrance. At precisely 8 p.m., a man entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped gray hair and watchful eyes that scanned the room automatically. Wade stood, raising a hand in greeting. Jack's face broke into a grin as he approached. Harmon, you sorry son of a bitch. He clasped Wade's hand, pulling him into a brief, hard embrace. You look like hell. Feel like it too, Wade admitted as they sat. Thanks for coming. Jack signaled the bartender for 2 whiskeys. Your email was light on details, but heavy on subtext. What kind of mess are you in? Wade gave him the condensed version, Natalie's betrayal, the stolen money, the abandoned children, Dominic's pattern of professional victimization. Jack listened without interruption, his expression darkening. I've seen this playbook before, he said when Wade finished. Not with this Dominic character specifically, but the pattern. It's methodical. That's what scares me, Wade admitted. He's done this successfully at least twice before. These aren't impulse crimes. They're calculated destructions. And now they're targeting your kids. Jack's tone was flat. That crosses a line. The bartender delivered their drinks. Jack raised his glass in a silent toast, then took a measured sip. Tell me what you need, Wade. Security system? Surveillance on this Dominic character? Legal connections? Wade stared into his whiskey. I need to make them pay. Not just legally. That's too uncertain, too easy for them to manipulate. I need to dismantle their operation the way they're trying to dismantle my life. Jack studied him. That's not the Wade Harmon I remember. That guy played by the rules, trusted the system. That guy didn't have 2 traumatized children depending on him for survival. Wade met Jack's gaze. That guy hadn't watched his 9-year-old son turn into a silent ghost of himself, or held his 6-year-old daughter through night terrors where she screams for a mother who never cared about her. Jack nodded slowly. What exactly did you do in the 83rd Tactical Intelligence Company, Wade? It was an odd question. Jack knew perfectly well what Wade's role had been. Unless, I specialized in target acquisition and asset development, Wade replied carefully. Non-traditional approaches to high-value situations. Meaning I identified vulnerabilities in seemingly secure systems and exploited them to extract valuable information or influence outcomes. Jack smiled slightly. In other words, you were a wolf in sheep's clothing. The quiet analyst who could dismantle an enemy's entire operational structure without them realizing you were in the room. Wade hadn't thought of his military work in those terms for years. He deliberately buried that part of himself when he transitioned to civilian life, believing it had no place in the world of finance and family he'd chosen. That was a lifetime ago, he said. Maybe. Jack leaned forward. Or maybe that's exactly who you need to be right now. They talked for another hour, discussing options, resources, potential approaches. Jack offered connections, legal, financial, surveillance. By the time they parted, Wade had the beginnings of a plan forming. Remember the first rule of asymmetric warfare, Jack said as they stood to leave. When your opponent has superior resources or position, change the battlefield. Make them fight where you're strongest. Wade nodded. Thanks, Jack. I mean it. No thanks needed. Jack clasped his shoulder. Some fights are worth having. This is one of them. Wade arrived home at 9:45, 15 minutes earlier than promised. Mrs. Delaney reported that both children had been well behaved, though Trevor had checked the clock repeatedly. He's worried you won't come back, she said quietly at the door. Poor child. After what his mother did. Wade thanked her and went upstairs to check on the children. Zoe was sound asleep, her breathing deep and even. Trevor, however, sat up in bed, a book open on his lap though the room was too dark to read. You came back, he said as Wade entered. I promised I would. Wade sat on the edge of the bed. Want to talk about what's bothering you? Trevor closed his book. Are they going to take us away from you? The question caught Wade off guard. Who? The social worker lady. I heard you talking to Dr. Torres. They think you're not doing a good job. Wade chose his words carefully. Some people don't understand our situation. But no one is going to take you away from me. I promise. Mom promised she'd always be there too. Trevor's voice was barely audible. I'm not your mom. The words came out harsher than Wade intended. He softened his tone. Trevor, look at me. I will never abandon you or Zoe. No matter what happens, I will always fight to keep you safe. That's a promise I will die before breaking. Something in his voice must have convinced Trevor because the boy nodded slowly. Okay, try to get some sleep. Wade stood to leave. Dad, Trevor's voice stopped him at the door. Are you going to try to get Mom back? Wade turned. No, Trevor. I'm not. Good. Trevor slid down under his covers. I don't want her back. After Trevor fell asleep, Wade returned downstairs and opened his laptop. He created a new folder titled Reclamation and began organizing information, everything about Natalie and Dominic, their business, their patterns, their vulnerabilities. The kitchen felt too confined for the rage building inside him. Wade moved to the living room, where framed family photos still sat on the mantel. He picked up the most recent one, the 4 of them at Trevor's last birthday, less than a month before Natalie left. Her smile now seemed obviously forced, her eyes already elsewhere. Wade studied the image of his children, Trevor blowing out candles, Zoe leaning against her brother with complete trust. They deserved better than this. Better than a mother who could discard them like unwanted possessions. Better than the lingering fear that their world could collapse again without warning. He replaced the photo and sat heavily on the couch, overwhelmed by the challenges ahead. The mortgage was approaching foreclosure. His job hung by a thread. Social services watched his every move. And somewhere in France, Natalie and Dominic plotted the next phase of his destruction, confident in their superior position. Wade's phone chimed with a text notification. It was Jack, sending contact information for resources they discussed. The final message read simply, remember who you are, Harmon. The quiet ones are the most dangerous when provoked. Wade stared at those words for a long moment. In the military, he'd been known for his precision and patience. The analyst who could construct an entire operation based on seemingly insignificant details, who could predict enemy movements before they themselves knew what they would do. He'd been effective precisely because he was underestimated, overlooked in favor of more obvious threats. Dominic had certainly underestimated him. The man had seen only a financially successful but socially conventional finance professional, too bound by rules and expectations to pose a serious threat. He had no idea of the tactician beneath that carefully constructed exterior. A sound from upstairs broke Wade's concentration, Zoe crying out in her sleep. He rushed to her room, gathering her into his arms as she sobbed through another nightmare. Mommy left us at school, she whimpered against his shoulder. She said we were bad. You're not bad, Zoe Bear, Wade murmured, rocking her gently. You're perfect. And Daddy's here. Will you leave too? Her small hand clutched his shirt. Never. Wade kissed the top of her head. I promise. He held her until she fell back asleep, then carefully tucked her in, making sure Mr. Flopsy was securely in her arms. In the hallway, he noticed Trevor's door was ajar, the boy's watchful eyes visible in the crack. "She okay?" Trevor asked softly. Wade nodded. "Just a bad dream. Go back to sleep, buddy." Instead, Trevor padded into the hallway, his expression uncertain. Without warning, he wrapped his arms around Wade's waist, pressing his face against his father's chest. Wade stood frozen in surprise. Trevor had rejected physical comfort since Natalie left. "I hate her for making Zoe cry," Trevor whispered fiercely. Wade embraced his son, feeling the thin shoulders shaking with suppressed emotion. "I know, buddy. I know." After Trevor returned to bed, Wade went to his office and stared at the photos of his children, school portraits from the previous year when they were still whole, still unaware of how completely their world would shatter. "I'm not just going to survive this," he whispered to their images. "I'm going to make them pay for every tear you've shed." The promise felt like a physical weight, solid and immovable in his chest. Wade opened his laptop and began to type, guiding his planning. Dominic had chosen the wrong family to destroy. He had failed to recognize the predator hidden beneath Wade's civilized exterior. That mistake would cost him everything. Chapter 4. Assembling Resources. "Mr. Harmon, I'm concerned about your mental state." Dr. Felton peered at Wade over wire-rimmed glasses, her notepad balanced on her knee. "The trauma you've experienced has clearly reactivated your military PTSD." Wade sat across from her in the sparsely decorated office, his posture rigid. This was his third appointment, enough to establish credibility for what came next. "The nightmares have intensified," he said, which wasn't a lie. "I see Natalie abandoning the children, but it morphs into images from Afghanistan. People left behind. Betrayal." Dr. Felton nodded, making a note. "And your concentration at work?" "Non-existent. I nearly sent incorrect investment advice to a major client last week." Also true, though Wade had caught the error before sending. "I believe you would benefit from medical leave," Dr. Felton said, exactly as Wade had hoped. "At least 3 months to focus on your recovery and children." "My employer won't like it." "Your employer is legally obligated to accommodate documented medical conditions. PTSD from military service combined with recent acute trauma is more than sufficient grounds." She began writing on her prescription pad. "I'll prepare the necessary documentation today." 2 hours later, Wade sat in Lynn Blackwood's office at Blackstone Financial, watching his boss scan Dr. Felton's letter. 3 months. Lynn frowned, her sleek bob swinging as she looked up. "Wade, I've been patient, but we're a boutique firm. We can't carry your clients indefinitely." "I understand. I'm prepared to take the leave without pay and accept a reduced client load upon return." Lynn's expression softened slightly. "It's not about the money. It's about client relationships. Meridian Capital still hasn't forgiven us for the Chicago debacle. I've drafted transition plans for each client." Wade slid a folder across her desk. "Mike DeSantos has agreed to handle the most sensitive accounts temporarily." Lynn paged through the meticulously prepared documents. "You've thought this through." "I need this time, Lynn. For my children. For myself." Wade leaned forward. "I can't be effective here until I resolve my personal situation." After a long pause, Lynn nodded. 3 months. We'll reevaluate then." She closed the folder. "Take care of yourself, Wade. And those kids." By noon, Wade had cleared his desk and transferred his active files to colleagues. By 1, he was at Oak Ridge Elementary, requesting a meeting with Principal Garcia. The principal received him in her cluttered office, concern evident in her expression. "Mr. Harmon, is everything all right?" "I'm taking medical leave from work," Wade explained. "I wanted to inform you personally since I'll be more present at school functions. Also, I've arranged for both children to continue therapy with Dr. Torres twice weekly." Principal Garcia nodded. "That's good to hear." Trevor's teacher reports he's still withdrawn, though his academic performance remains strong. Zoe's separation anxiety has improved slightly, but she still asks to call you during the day. I've discussed a modified call schedule with her therapist. Once daily, after lunch. Wade passed her a document. "This is a formal notice revoking Natalie's access to the children or their records. My attorney has filed for emergency custody modification based on abandonment." Principal Garcia's expression remained neutral as she accepted the paperwork. "We'll update our records accordingly." "And Mr. Harmon?" The staff and I are here to support your family through this transition. Wade's next stop was the gym where he'd once maintained a rarely used membership. The facility manager, Paolo, greeted him with surprise. Wade, haven't seen you in what, a year? Closer to 2. Wade surveyed the equipment. I need to get back in shape, physically and mentally. Paolo's eyes showed recognition. Heard about your situation. Tough break, man. Wade didn't bother asking how Paolo knew. In communities like theirs, word traveled. I need a comprehensive program, Wade said. Strength, endurance, flexibility, and a trainer who won't ask personal questions. Paolo nodded. I've got just the person. Former Marine, keeps to himself. Marcus trains clients at 5 a.m. before the morning crowd. Perfect. I'll start tomorrow. The following morning, Wade rose at 4:30 a.m., careful not to wake the children. He found Mrs. Delaney already waiting in the kitchen. They'd arranged for her to stay whenever Wade needed to be out early. They're still asleep, she whispered. Go do what you need to. We'll be fine. The gym was nearly empty when Wade arrived. Marcus, a compact man with close-cropped hair and watchful eyes, assessed Wade without speaking, then nodded once. Paolo briefed me. Military background. Out of shape. Need to rebuild. That's the overview. Marcus circled Wade, noting his posture. What branch? Army. Intelligence. Combat deployment. Some. Marcus seemed to recognize Wade's reticence. We'll start with a baseline assessment. Then design a program. 5 days a week, here at 5 a.m. No excuses. The workout that followed was brutal. Wade struggled through basic exercises that had once been routine, his body protesting years of desk work and recent neglect. By the end, his muscles screamed and sweat drenched his clothes. You're softer than you look, Marcus commented, not unkindly. But there's foundation underneath. We can rebuild. Wade nodded, catching his breath. That's the general plan. At home, Wade showered and prepared breakfast before waking the children. Trevor emerged from his room already dressed, his expression guarded as usual. You went somewhere this morning, he said, more observation than question. The gym. I've started training again. Wade set a plate of eggs before him. I'll be doing that most mornings, but Mrs. Delaney will be here until I get back. Trevor poked at his food. Why are you training? Wade considered his answer carefully. Because I need to be stronger. For both of you. Zoe bounced into the kitchen, her mood noticeably brighter than it had been in months. Daddy, can we have pancakes tomorrow? Sure, Zoe Bear. Go get your backpack. We leave in 10 minutes. After dropping the children at school, Wade drove to a nondescript office building in Palo Alto. Jack Winters waited in the lobby, dressed in khaki pants and a golf shirt that disguised his military bearing from casual observers. Right on time, Jack commented, leading Wade to an elevator. How'd it go with your boss? Exactly as planned. 3 months of medical leave, documented and above board. Jack nodded approvingly as they exited on the 5th floor. Smart. Always operate within the system when possible. Easier to move undetected. The office suite contained a small reception area and 3 interior rooms. The sign on the door read, Winters Security Consulting. Welcome to my satellite office, Jack said, ushering Wade into a conference room. Main operations in San Diego, but I maintain this space for Bay Area clients. The room contained a long table surrounded by chairs. One wall held multiple monitors displaying security feeds from various locations. I brought everything you requested, Wade said, placing a thumb drive on the table. Jack inserted the drive into a computer, and data filled the screens. Bank records, emails, photos, video files. Comprehensive, Jack noted, scanning the information. You weren't exaggerating your digital forensics skills. Most people don't secure their personal accounts properly, Wade said. Natalie used the same 3 passwords for everything, and Dominic's digital hygiene isn't much better. Jack navigated through the files, pausing on images of Dominic with various women, including Natalie. Classic predator. Isolate, manipulate, exploit. I need to understand what I'm dealing with, Wade said. Not just Natalie's betrayal, but Dominic's operation. How sophisticated it is. What resources they have. And how dangerous they might become. Jack pulled up records of Dominic's previous victims. The pattern is consistent but escalating. Each operation more ambitious than the last. Wade leaned forward. What does that mean for me? It means they'll fight harder when they realize you're not following the expected script. Jack turned to face him directly. The first victim killed himself. The second tried to fight back conventionally and was destroyed. You're demonstrating resilience they didn't anticipate. So they'll escalate. Almost certainly. Jack pulled up a new window on the computer. Which is why we're upgrading your home security system today. Remote monitoring, motion sensors, cameras with facial recognition. Wade's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. He glanced down, then froze. Speak of the devil, he muttered, showing Jack the screen. The message read, enjoying raising those brats alone? Don't get too comfortable. Jack took the phone, connecting it to a device on the table. Burner phone, but we might trace the general location. His fingers moved rapidly over the keyboard. Southern France, as expected. Probably Dominic, not Natalie. The syntax matches his writing patterns. Wade felt cold anger spreading through his chest. They're threatening my children now. They're trying to destabilize you, Jack corrected. Standard psychological pressure. If you react emotionally, you make mistakes. I'm well past emotional reactions, Wade said quietly. Jack studied him for a moment, then nodded. Good. Because we need to move to the next phase. While my team installs your security system, you need to continue your investigation into their current operation. By afternoon, the Harmon house had been transformed into a security fortress, though the changes remained invisible to casual observers. Wade sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by printouts as Jack conducted a final system check. Cameras are online, Jack confirmed. Motion sensors active. The system will alert both my security team and your phone if anything unusual occurs. Wade tapped a document containing business registration information. They've established exclusive journeys as a luxury travel agency in Marseille. Website looks professional, client testimonials seem legitimate. Perfect cover for money laundering, Jack commented. Luxury travel involves large cash transactions, international transfers, and subjective pricing that's difficult to verify. They're using my retirement funds as startup capital. Wade pulled up financial records. But they're burning through it faster than they anticipated. The business isn't yet self-sustaining. Jack peered at the screen. Which gives us an opening. They'll need additional investment soon. Wade nodded. I'm already building an alias. Richard Keller, tech entrepreneur looking to diversify into luxury travel. Solid approach. But this needs to be comprehensive. Digital footprint, verifiable references, background that holds up to scrutiny. Already in progress, Wade confirmed, showing Jack multiple social media profiles and a professional website. Richard Keller sold his cybersecurity startup 2 years ago and has been seeking new investment opportunities. He travels extensively, maintains homes in San Francisco and London, and values privacy. Jack looked impressed. This isn't amateur work. Intelligence operations require attention to detail, Wade replied. I've still got contacts who owe me favors. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Wade checked the security camera feed on his phone before opening it. Dr. Abigail Torres stood on the porch, her expression concerned. She was younger than Wade had expected when they first met, early 30s, with curly dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent brown eyes behind simple glasses. Mr. Harmon, she said, thank you for seeing me on short notice. Wade ushered her inside. Of course. Dr. Torres, this is Jack Winters, a friend who's helping with some security upgrades. Dr. Torres nodded to Jack, then turned back to Wade. I wanted to discuss the children's progress in person. Trevor made a concerning statement in our session today. Wade led her to the kitchen table, clearing away the documents. What happened? He said he's afraid someone might take him and Zoe away from you. She set her bag down, extracting a notebook. When I asked why he thought that, he mentioned overhearing a phone conversation where you discussed potential threats. Wade glanced at Jack, who raised an eyebrow. Trevor has exceptional hearing, Wade explained. Always has. Mr. Harmon, Dr. Torres said carefully, I need to understand the actual situation these children are facing. Their recovery depends on stability and truth appropriate to age. Wade hesitated, then decided on honesty. My ex-wife and her partner may attempt to gain custody despite their abandonment. They've also made veiled threats regarding the children. Dr. Torres didn't seem surprised. I suspected something along those lines. The children's anxiety patterns suggest ongoing threats to their security, not just past trauma. I'm taking precautions, Wade assured her. The security upgrades, legal preparations, documentation of everything. And your own mental health? Dr. Torres asked directly. These children need you functioning at your best. I've taken medical leave from work. Started physical training. I'm focused entirely on protecting them now. Dr. Torres studied him, then seemed to come to a decision. I believe you, Mr. Harmon, and I want to help. How? By continuing to treat your children, documenting their progress and ongoing trauma responses. By providing expert testimony if custody becomes contested. She leaned forward. And by offering you a space to process your own trauma, which you've been suppressing to focus on theirs. Jack stood. I should finish the security check. Wade, we'll continue our discussion tomorrow. After Jack departed, Wade and Dr. Torres talked for nearly an hour. She asked probing questions about his military background, his relationship with Natalie, and his coping mechanisms. You're compartmentalizing, she observed. It's a skill that served you well in intelligence work, but it has limitations in personal trauma. It's keeping me functional, Wade countered. For now, she agreed. But long-term healing requires integration, not compartmentalization. These children need a whole father, not just a protector. Wade felt an unexpected surge of emotion. I'm doing the best I can. I know. Her voice softened. And it's impressive. Most people would have collapsed under this pressure. But sustainable resilience requires acknowledging pain, not just controlling it. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Mrs. Delaney returning with the children from school. Wade checked his watch, surprised at how much time had passed. We can continue this another time, Dr. Torres said, gathering her things. But please consider what I've said. There's a fine line between justice and vengeance. One heals, the other consumes. As she moved toward the door, she paused. Your children are remarkably resilient, Mr. Harmon. Trevor's protectiveness toward Zoe, Zoe's ability to still find joy despite her anxiety. These are signs of fundamental emotional health. You've given them a solid foundation, whatever Natalie might have done. After Dr. Torres left, Wade greeted his children. Zoe ran to him with her usual enthusiasm, but Trevor hung back, studying the house with suspicious eyes. Who was that lady? He asked. Dr. Torres came to talk about your therapy sessions, Wade explained. Trevor's eyes narrowed. What about the other man? The one who was here earlier? Wade suppressed his surprise at Trevor's perceptiveness. An old friend helping me with some work around the house. Is he going to help us find Mom? Trevor's voice was neutral, but his eyes were intense. Wade knelt to his son's level. No, Trevor. Remember what we discussed? Mom made her choice. We're focusing on building our life now. Trevor seemed to consider this, then nodded once. Good. I don't want her back anyway. That night, after the children were asleep, Wade returned to his research. Natalie and Dominic's business presented a perfect opening. Financial records indicated they were actively seeking investors to expand their operation. Wade created a new email address for Richard Keller and drafted a message expressing interest in their luxury travel venture, hinting at substantial capital available for the right opportunity. He populated Richard's digital footprint with carefully constructed posts and connections, building a convincing backstory that would withstand scrutiny. Next, Wade contacted former colleagues now working in international finance and law enforcement. He prepared detailed evidence packages documenting the fraud and money laundering patterns, but requested they delay action until his signal. This needs to be coordinated, he explained to his contact at Interpol. If they're tipped off too early, they'll disappear with the remaining funds. Dawn found Wade still working, his mind clear and focused in a way it hadn't been since before Natalie's betrayal. The physical exhaustion from Marcus's training combined with the mental discipline of planning had centered him. When his phone alarm reminded him it was time for the gym, Wade felt ready despite the lack of sleep. His body ached from the previous day's exertion, but the pain felt cleansing, purposeful. Marcus noted the change immediately. You look different today. I feel different, Wade admitted, beginning his warm-up. Purpose will do that, Marcus observed. I've seen it before. The transformation when someone stops being a victim and starts being a warrior again. Wade performed his exercises, his movements becoming more fluid as muscle memory awakened. Your foundation's stronger than I thought, Marcus commented. We can accelerate the program. By the time Wade returned home to prepare breakfast for the children, his path forward had crystallized. This wasn't just about recovery, or survival anymore. This was preparation for a specific mission, protecting his children and bringing their betrayers to justice. Trevor noticed the change in his father immediately. The boy paused in the kitchen doorway, studying Wade with those perceptive eyes so like his own. "You're different today," he said, echoing Marcus's observation. Wade managed a small smile. "I'm finding my way forward, buddy. One step at a time." Trevor approached cautiously. "Are we going to be okay?" Wade pulled his son into a gentle hug, surprised when Trevor didn't resist. "Yes, Trevor. We're going to be more than okay. I promise." For the first time since Natalie's departure, the promise felt like something Wade could actually fulfill. Chapter 5. Countermoves. Wade woke to the insistent buzz of his phone at 3:17 a.m. The security app flashed red with multiple alerts. He bolted upright, instantly alert. Intrusion attempt detected. Network security breach in progress. Wade tapped through to the detailed report. Someone was trying to access his financial accounts through the home network. The security system Jack had installed was blocking the attempt while simultaneously tracing its origin. Wade activated the secure communication line to Jack's monitoring center. A response came almost immediately. "We're tracking it," said the technician. "Sophisticated attack, but not top tier. Origin appears to be southern France, bouncing through servers in Eastern Europe." "Natalie and Dominic," Wade confirmed, moving to his laptop. "Most likely. They're trying to access your remaining accounts. The security protocols are holding, but they're persistent." Wade watched the attack unfold in real time, a probing of his digital defenses. "Let them continue for another 2 minutes, then shut it down hard. I want them to know they've been detected." "Understood." Wade used those 2 minutes to access his own monitoring system. 3 weeks earlier, he had managed to plant a small tracking program in Natalie and Dominic's business server through a carefully crafted email attachment. The program had remained dormant until now. As Natalie and Dominic attempted to breach his security, Wade's program activated, sending back valuable data about their systems, communications, and financial records. "Time's up," the technician announced. "Terminating their access now." Wade watched as his security system not only blocked the intrusion, but sent back a counterpulse that would disrupt their connection. A message appeared on his screen: "Data acquisition complete." A small smile crossed Wade's face. While they had been trying to hack him, he had succeeded in hacking them. The new information confirmed what Wade had suspected: Natalie and Dominic were burning through money faster than anticipated. Their business was struggling to attract legitimate high-end clients, and their personal expenses were extravagant. At their current rate, they would exhaust Wade's stolen retirement funds within another 6 months. More concerning was an email exchange between Dominic and a lawyer in Geneva. They were preparing to file for divorce on Natalie's behalf, claiming Wade had been abusive and that she had fled for her safety. The filing would include demands for child support and alimony. Wade forwarded everything to Jack, then checked on the children. Both were sleeping soundly, unaware of the digital battle that had just occurred. He stood in the doorway of Trevor's room, watching his son's chest rise and fall, a fierce protectiveness washing over him. "They won't get near you," he whispered. "Either of you." The following morning, Wade received a call from a lawyer named Malcolm Bennett. The man's voice was smooth, professional, with the faintest hint of condescension. "Mr. Harmon, I'm contacting you regarding divorce proceedings initiated by your wife, Natalie Harmon. I'd like to schedule a time to discuss the terms." Wade's grip tightened on the phone. "My wife abandoned our children at school and stole $2 million from our accounts. There are no terms to discuss." "Mr. Harmon," Bennett's voice cooled further, "Mrs. Harmon has documented a pattern of controlling and emotionally abusive behavior that forced her to leave for her own safety. She's prepared to pursue full custody once she's established a secure living situation." "Is that what she told you?" Wade kept his voice even. "Did she mention the video she left gloating about taking my money? Or how she planned her departure to coincide with my business trip so the children would be left alone?" "These allegations will be addressed in court. In the meantime, Mrs. Harmon is seeking temporary child support of $6,000 monthly and spousal support of $8,000 monthly." Wade almost laughed at the audacity. "Mr. Bennett, I'll be recording all future communications from my attorney. You should know that I've been granted emergency temporary custody based on abandonment, and I'll be seeking permanent sole custody. I suggest you research your client more thoroughly before proceeding." After hanging up, Wade called his own attorney, Victoria Chen. She'd been recommended by Jack as someone who specialized in high-conflict divorces involving international jurisdiction issues. They filed. Wade informed her, forwarding Bennett's contact information, claiming abuse as the reason she fled, seeking substantial support despite having stolen my retirement funds. Victoria's voice was calm, analytical. Standard opening move. They're testing your response, seeing if you'll fold under pressure. I assume you'll handle the legal countermoves. Already in progress. I've filed motions in 3 jurisdictions to freeze assets connected to both Natalie and Dominic. The abandonment documentation is compelling. We'll use it to block any support demands while pursuing fraud charges. Wade glanced at his watch. I have to get the kids to school. But there's one more thing. They tried to hack my accounts last night. Document everything, Victoria advised. Each attempted crime strengthens our position. At Oak Ridge Elementary, Wade watched Trevor and Zoe walk into the building, Zoe turning back twice to wave. They were showing small signs of improvement. Trevor had joined the chess club, and Zoe had made a new friend named Lily. Dr. Torres called these resilience indicators, evidence that despite their trauma, they were finding ways to adapt. As Wade turned to leave, he noticed a woman watching him from a car across the street. Christine Delacruz. She raised a hand in tentative greeting, then walked toward him. You've changed, she observed, studying his appearance. Wade knew what she saw. He'd lost the softness of his corporate life, his body leaner and harder from Marcus's training regimen. His clothing was simpler now, practical rather than fashionable. Even his posture had shifted, returning to the alert readiness of his military days. Circumstances changed me, he replied. Christine nodded. I thought you should know. Natalie called me yesterday. First time since she left. Wade's interest sharpened. What did she want? To build her narrative. She claims she's worried about the children, that you're unstable, potentially dangerous. She asked if I'd noticed concerning behavior before she left. And what did you tell her? Christine met his gaze directly. I told her the only concerning behavior I witnessed was hers, gradually pulling away from those children while plotting her escape. Wade felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you for that. It's nothing but the truth. Christine hesitated. There's more. She asked if I would testify about your controlling tendencies if the case went to court. Will you? No. Christine's expression hardened. I've seen how you're fighting for those children. How you've completely restructured your life to give them stability. Whatever Natalie and Dominic are planning, I won't help them. Wade considered his next words carefully. Have they approached anyone else you know? Several friends. Some are staying neutral. Others. She frowned. People like to take sides, especially when they don't have all the facts. I appreciate the warning. As Christine turned to leave, she paused. Wade, be careful. Natalie mentioned coming back briefly. Something about items she left behind that she needs to retrieve. Wade's mind immediately went to the safe deposit box Natalie had maintained at First Republic Bank. She'd mentioned family jewelry stored there, pieces from her grandmother worth considerable sums. Did she say when? No specifics. Just that she'd be in touch about accessing the house. After Christine left, Wade drove directly to First Republic Bank. The manager, Mr. Phillips, greeted him with professional courtesy. Mr. Harmon, how can I assist you today? I need information about a safe deposit box registered to my wife. Phillips looked uncomfortable. I'm afraid I can't disclose details about another customer's accounts, even a spouse's, without proper authorization. Wade had anticipated this. He produced legal documents from Victoria. My wife abandoned our family and stole significant funds. These court orders authorize me to identify and secure marital assets pending divorce proceedings. Phillips examined the documents, then nodded reluctantly. I'll need to consult with our legal department, but these appear to be in order. Please wait in my office. 20 minutes later, Phillips returned. Mrs. Harmon maintains Box 4721. Our records show she last accessed it 8 months ago. Can you tell me what it contains? We don't inventory the contents of safe deposit boxes, Mr. Harmon, but I can tell you it's one of our larger units, typically used for bulkier items or extensive document storage. Wade thanked him and left, immediately calling Victoria to update her. We'll add the contents to our asset inventory, she confirmed. If she attempts to access it, the bank will notify us. Wade's next stop was a scheduled meeting with Lynn at Blackstone Financial. Though he was on medical leave, He'd agreed to monthly check-ins to maintain his standing at the firm. Lynn greeted him with surprise. "Wade, you look different." "I'm adapting," he said simply. They discussed his accounts and the transition plans for his clients. Lynn seemed satisfied with the arrangements, though she expressed concern about his eventual return. "The market doesn't wait for personal crises," she reminded him. "Clients have short memories for loyalty." "I understand." Wade handed her a folder. "These are updates to my transition documents. I've included assessment reports for my key clients to help Mike maintain those relationships." Lynn studied him. "This isn't just about medical leave, is it? You're planning something." Wade met her gaze steadily. "I'm focusing on what matters most, my children's well-being and future security." As Wade left Blackstone's offices, his phone buzzed with an alert from Jack. The facial recognition system had identified a suspicious individual near Wade's home, a man with known connections to Dominic Reeves. Wade diverted to Jack's Palo Alto office, where they reviewed the security footage together. "He circled your house twice," Jack noted, pointing to timestamps. "Then parked across the street for 17 minutes before leaving." "Reconnaissance," Wade concluded. "They're planning something. Most likely. We've identified him as Anton Vasquez, former enforcer for a San Diego loan shark. Now works freelance security for various questionable enterprises." Wade studied the man's image, mid-40s, muscular build, the relaxed alertness of someone accustomed to violence. "Have you seen him before?" Jack asked. "No, but his appearance fits the escalation pattern. First digital attacks, then legal pressure, now physical intimidation. We should increase security around the children," Jack suggested. Wade nodded. Dr. Torres mentioned a weekend therapy retreat for families dealing with abandonment issues. It would get them away from the house for a few days while we address this new threat. That afternoon, Wade received a text from his neighbor Richard Delaney. "Someone scratched up your car. Parked in front of our house now. Police here taking report." Wade arrived home to find his Honda with "Leave It Alone" scratched deeply into the driver's side door and hood. Officer Reyes, the same officer who had been present when Wade discovered Natalie's abandonment, was documenting the damage. "Mr. Harmon," she greeted him. "Any idea who might have done this?" "I have suspicions," Wade replied, explaining the situation with Natalie and Dominic. Officer Reyes made notes. "We've pulled footage from the Delaney's doorbell camera. The perpetrator wore a hood, but we might get something from gait analysis or vehicle identification." Wade thanked her, then checked the footage from his own security system. The cameras had captured a clearer image of the vandal, Anton Vasquez, wearing a hoodie but clearly recognizable. Wade forwarded the images to Jack and Victoria, building their evidence file. That evening, while the children worked on homework, Wade created a comprehensive document tracking all of Natalie and Dominic's assets, the accounts they knew about, and those uncovered through his investigation. The picture was troubling. They'd established shell companies in 3 countries, moved money through a series of transfers designed to obscure its origin, and maintained accounts under aliases. Wade's phone rang. Jack, calling with news. "We've confirmed Dominic's connection to organized crime," he reported. "Minor players, not cartel level, but dangerous nonetheless. They provided funding for his previous operations in exchange for money laundering services. That explains the physical intimidation tactics," Wade noted. "They're protecting their investment. There's more. Our sources indicate they're unhappy with Dominic. The luxury travel business isn't generating the cleaning capacity they expected." Wade processed this information. "So they're applying pressure from their side while we're applying it from ours." "Exactly. Dominic's being squeezed from both directions." After hanging up, Wade turned his attention to establishing a trust for Trevor and Zoe. Working with Victoria and a financial advisor Jack had recommended, Wade created a structure that would protect his remaining assets from Natalie's claims while providing for the children's future needs. "This trust is ironclad," Victoria assured him during their conference call. "The children are the sole beneficiaries, with you as trustee until they reach majority. Natalie can't touch it regardless of divorce outcomes." Wade's laptop pinged with an incoming email. Richard Keller had received a response from Exclusive Journeys expressing interest in discussing investment opportunities. The pieces were falling into place. A knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. Trevor stood in the doorway, a school paper in his hand. "Dad, can you check my history report?" Wade minimized his screen. "Of course, buddy." Come in. Trevor placed the paper on the desk, a report on ancient Roman military tactics. The topic choice wasn't surprising. Trevor had always been interested in historical strategy. As Wade read through the meticulously researched paper, Trevor's eyes drifted to the minimized windows on the computer screen. "Are those about Mom and that man?" he asked suddenly. Wade looked up, startled by the directness of the question. "Yes. How did you know?" Trevor shrugged. "You get a different look on your face when you're working on stuff about them. More serious. Like you're solving a really hard math problem." Wade considered deflecting, then decided on a version of the truth. "Your mother and Dominic have done some things that aren't right. I'm working to fix those things and protect you and Zoe." "Is that why someone scratched your car?" Nothing escaped this child's notice. "Yes. Some people don't want me to fix the situation." Trevor was quiet for a moment, thinking. "In my report, the Romans won battles because they were disciplined and had better strategies, not because they were the biggest army." The parallel wasn't lost on Wade. That's often true in life too. "Are we the Romans in this situation?" Trevor asked, his expression serious. Wade felt a surge of pride at his son's perceptiveness. "We're certainly aiming to be." That night, Wade received another alert, this time from his financial monitoring system. Natalie and Dominic had made inquiries about his remaining investment accounts through a third party. The attempts were being blocked, but the pattern was clear. They were becoming increasingly desperate to access additional funds. Wade forwarded the information to Victoria, who responded immediately, added to the evidence file. "I've also reached out to authorities in France based on the money laundering documentation you provided. They're interested but want more substantial evidence before acting." Wade replied, "Tell them to hold position. I'll provide what they need, but timing is crucial." The next morning, Wade met Jack at a coffee shop near the children's school, chosen specifically because Natalie had never visited it during their marriage. "Our financial analysis is complete," Wade reported, sliding a folder across the table. "Dominic's business model relies on a constant influx of new capital. It's essentially a Ponzi scheme with a luxury travel facade." Jack paged through the documents. "Classic. Use new investor money to create the illusion of legitimate returns while skimming the majority. They've overextended," Wade continued. "The lifestyle they're maintaining in France requires more than what they took from me. They need fresh capital within the next 30 days or their operation collapses." Which makes Richard Keller's investment offer perfectly timed. Exactly. They'll be motivated but desperate, which makes them vulnerable. Jack closed the folder. "What about the children? How are they handling all this?" Wade considered the question. "Better than expected. Trevor is perceptive. He understands more than he says. Zoe still has anxiety, but she's sleeping through the night more often. And this weekend retreat Dr. Torres mentioned? We leave Friday afternoon, return Sunday evening. It's at a lodge near Lake Tahoe. Structured therapy sessions for the kids, support groups for parents." Jack nodded. "Good timing. It gives us opportunity to enhance your home security and conduct surveillance on Anton Vasquez. We need to understand exactly what they're planning. I've asked Victoria to expedite the legal proceedings while we're away," Wade added. "She'll file additional motions documenting the harassment and threats." As they were finishing their coffee, Wade's phone rang. "Christine." "Wade, I thought you should know. Natalie just called me again. She specifically asked about accessing items from a safe deposit box. Said she needs her grandmother's jewelry for sentimental reasons." "Did she mention timing?" "She was vague, but implied soon. She asked if I thought you'd be reasonable about it." Wade exchanged glances with Jack. "And what did you tell her?" "That I couldn't speak for you, but that your focus has been entirely on the children's welfare." After thanking Christine and ending the call, Wade turned to Jack. "They're accelerating. The jewelry is worth over $200,000. They must be more desperate for funds than we realized. Or they're creating a pretext to return and gather intelligence," Jack suggested. "We need to be ready either way." Wade nodded, his resolve hardening. "Richard Keller will extend an official investment offer today. $5 million, contingent on an in-person meeting." "They won't be able to resist," Jack agreed. "Not with their resources dwindling and creditors pressing." That afternoon, Wade met with Dr. Torres to finalize plans for the weekend retreat. She noticed his preoccupation immediately. "You seem tense, Mr. Harmon. Has something happened?" Wade debated how much to share, then decided on honesty. "The situation with Natalie and Dominic is escalating. They've attempted to hack my accounts, filed for divorce with false abuse allegations, and now engaged someone to vandalize my property and monitor our home. Dr. Torres's expression grew concerned. That's extremely troubling. Have you informed the authorities? Yes, and my attorney is documenting everything. But the real danger is their attempt to eventually gain access to the children. Which is why this weekend retreat is particularly important, Dr. Torres noted. Not just for therapeutic purposes, but for safety. Wade studied her. You understand more than you've indicated. I work with traumatized children, Mr. Harmon. Unfortunately, parental manipulation and using children as weapons isn't uncommon in high-conflict divorces. She adjusted her glasses. My priority is Trevor and Zoe's psychological well-being. Whatever you're doing to protect them, I support, within ethical and legal boundaries. I appreciate that, Wade said quietly. Dr. Torres gathered her notes. The children are showing progress, despite these ongoing threats. Trevor's protective instincts toward Zoe are healthy when not excessive, and Zoe's separation anxiety has decreased by approximately 30% according to our assessment metrics. I've noticed she's more willing to engage with other children recently. Yes, forming peer relationships is an important resilience factor. Dr. Torres met his gaze directly. Whatever you're planning regarding Natalie and Dominic, remember that your children need you whole and present. Vengeance can be as destructive to the avenger as to its target. This isn't about vengeance, Wade corrected. It's about justice and protection. Dr. Torres nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. Just be careful that one doesn't become the other without you noticing the transition. After she left, Wade returned to his computer to complete the final piece of his plan. As Richard Keller, he crafted a detailed investment proposal for Exclusive Journeys, offering $5 million in exchange for 40% equity. The terms were generous enough to be irresistible, with only one non-negotiable condition. Final approval required an in-person meeting. Before sending, Wade inserted carefully designed digital tracking elements into the document, invisible markers that would allow him to monitor exactly who viewed it and when. As he pressed send, Wade felt the culmination of months of preparation. The pieces were in position. The trap was set. Now it was time to draw them in. Chapter 6. The Lure. Dominic Reeves leaned back in his leather chair, studying the investment proposal on his laptop screen. Sunlight streamed through the windows of their Marseille apartment, illuminating the elegant space that had cost far more than they should have spent. $5 million, he said, tapping the screen. For 40%. The terms are almost suspiciously generous. Natalie looked up from the couch, where she'd been scrolling through social media. What does that mean? Is something wrong with it? Not wrong, exactly. Dominic ran a hand through his dark hair. Just unusually favorable. This Richard Keller either doesn't know what he's doing or wants something beyond a standard investment return. Maybe he just believes in the business. Natalie's voice carried a defensive edge. She'd been increasingly sensitive about their financial situation as funds dwindled faster than projected. Dominic's laugh held no humor. The business is a facade, darling. You know that. He scrolled through the proposal again, studying Richard Keller's profile. Tech entrepreneur, recently liquid after selling his cybersecurity startup, looking to diversify into luxury experiences. His digital footprint checked out, social media presence going back years, mentions in industry publications, connections with legitimate business figures. We need to vet him thoroughly, Dominic decided. This could be exactly what we need, or a complicated trap. What kind of trap? Natalie asked, suddenly alert. Could be competitors trying to gain insider information. Could be authorities using an undercover approach. Dominic tapped his fingers on the desk. Or it could be legitimate. Either way, we need this money. Natalie moved to stand behind him, reading over his shoulder. The in-person meeting requirement concerns me. We agreed we wouldn't return to the U.S. for at least a year. Plans change when opportunities arise. Dominic pointed to another section of the proposal. He's willing to transfer the first $1 million as a show of good faith before full agreement. That's unusual. And suspicious. Perhaps. But our other options are limited. Dominic didn't mention their most pressing issue. The people who had fronted money for his previous operations were growing impatient with the slower-than-promised returns. Natalie returned to the couch, her expression troubled. I don't want to go back there, Dom. Not yet. Afraid of facing your husband. Dominic's tone carried a slight taunt. Afraid of facing my children, Natalie corrected, her voice barely audible. Dominic dismissed her concern with a wave. We won't be anywhere near them. Fly in, meet Keller, sign the papers, get the money, fly out. 3 days maximum. And the safe deposit box? I told you I need to retrieve those pieces. They're worth. I know exactly what they're worth. Dominic cut her off. That's why they're on the agenda. We'll make arrangements to access the box while we're there. He turned back to the proposal, clicking through to Richard Keller's impressive online portfolio. Luxury properties, high-end vehicles, private jet memberships. All the trappings of the wealthy tech elite. I'm going to accept the preliminary terms, Dominic decided. Request a meeting in 3 weeks. That gives us time to complete the background verification and make travel arrangements. Natalie nodded, but her expression remained troubled. She rose and moved to the balcony overlooking the Mediterranean, the view they could no longer afford unless something changed dramatically. Wade sat in Jack's surveillance room, monitoring the digital tracking elements he'd embedded in the investment proposal. The document had been opened multiple times over the past hour, examined in detail, and portions copied into search queries. Exactly the response pattern he'd anticipated. They're researching Richard Keller, Wade noted, watching the activity. Thorough but not exceptional verification attempts. Jack nodded, studying the data. Standard background check. Nothing that would identify the digital footprint as constructed. They've accessed his social media, professional profiles, and news mentions. Wade pointed to the screen. The identity will hold up to this level of scrutiny. Richard Keller existed only in digital space, a carefully constructed persona with verifiable online history, professional accomplishments, and social connections. Wade had used techniques from his intelligence days to create a backstory that appeared authentic even to moderately sophisticated investigation. They haven't attempted to contact any of his supposed business associates yet, Jack observed. They will. Wade checked another monitor. And when they do, they'll reach our people who will verify everything. Jack leaned back in his chair. Phase 1 proceeding as planned then. What about the children's retreat this weekend? All arranged. Dr. Torres will accompany us to provide ongoing therapy in a secure environment. Wade pulled up the retreat location on another screen. A private lodge near Lake Tahoe, isolated and easily secured. My team will maintain surveillance here while you're gone, Jack confirmed. If Natalie or her associates attempt to access the house or safe deposit box, we'll know immediately. Wade nodded, his attention captured by a new alert on the main screen. They've responded to the proposal. The email was brief and professional. Mr. Keller, thank you for your interest in exclusive journeys. Your proposal is intriguing, and we would be pleased to discuss it further. We can arrange to meet at your convenience in San Francisco 3 weeks from now. Please advise if this timeline works for you. Wade forwarded the message to Victoria, who responded immediately. Perfect timing. Our motions will be filed by then, creating maximum legal pressure just as they arrive for the meeting. The next phase required additional preparation. Wade composed Richard Keller's response, suggesting a meeting at a private villa in wine country rather than San Francisco proper, for privacy and the opportunity to experience the luxury environment that defines your brand. While waiting for their reply, Wade checked the time. He needed to leave soon to pick up the children from school. Trevor had chess club today, which meant a later pickup time for him. Jack, I need to get Zoe from school. Can you monitor for further responses? Of course. I'll update you immediately if anything significant happens. At Oak Ridge Elementary, Wade found Zoe waiting with her teacher, Miss Paulson. The little girl's face lit up when she saw him. Daddy, I got a gold star on my math worksheet. Wade scooped her up, noting that she felt lighter in his arms these days. Dr. Torres had mentioned that extreme stress could affect children's appetites. That's fantastic, Zoe Bear. Let's see it. As Zoe proudly displayed her worksheet covered with carefully drawn numbers, Ms. Paulson spoke quietly to Wade. She's making good progress, Mr. Harmon. Her concentration is improving, and she's engaging more with classmates during free time. That's encouraging, Wade replied, helping Zoe put the worksheet back in her folder. Any anxiety episodes today? None. She did ask to call you after lunch, but when reminded she could call at the regular time, she accepted it without distress. Another small victory. Wade thanked Ms. Paulson and headed toward the car, Zoe chattering about her day. Lily invited me to her birthday party, she announced as Wade buckled her into her booster seat. It's at the trampoline place with the foam pit. That sounds fun. When is it? 2 Saturdays from now. Can I go, Daddy? Please. The request, so normal, so typical of any 6-year-old, made Wade's throat tighten with emotion. After months of trauma and withdrawal, Zoe was beginning to reach for normal childhood experiences again. Of course you can go. We'll find Lily a nice present. Zoe clapped her hands together. Can we get her a stuffed unicorn? She loves unicorns like I love rabbits. Absolutely. While Zoe continued chattering, Wade's phone vibrated with a message from Jack. Keller proposal accepted. Meeting confirmed at villa location in 3 weeks. They've requested detailed financial disclosures in advance. Wade smiled slightly. The financial disclosures would contain subtle inconsistencies. Nothing that would derail the deal, but enough to create uncertainty and pressure them to close quickly. After dropping Zoe at home with Mrs. Delaney, Wade returned to the school to pick up Trevor from chess club. The boy emerged from the building deep in conversation with his coach, Mr. Abernathy. Trevor has remarkable strategic thinking, Mr. Abernathy told Wade as they approached. He's already playing at a level beyond most students twice his age. Trevor looked down, uncomfortable with the praise, but obviously pleased. That doesn't surprise me, Wade replied, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. He's always been able to think several moves ahead. In the car, Trevor was unusually talkative. Coach says I might be ready for the regional scholastic tournament next month. Do you think I could go? If you want to, absolutely. Wade navigated through after-school traffic. You enjoying chess that much? Trevor nodded. I like how there are rules that don't change, but infinite possibilities within those rules. And how you have to anticipate what your opponent might do before they do it. The parallel to their current situation wasn't lost on Wade. That's a valuable skill in many aspects of life. That's what Coach said too. Trevor glanced at his father. Are we still going to the retreat this weekend? Yes. We leave Friday after school. Dr. Torres will be there, along with 3 other families in similar situations. Trevor considered this. Will it help Zoe? The question caught Wade by surprise. Not its content, but the concern behind it. I think it will help both of you. Why do you ask? She had a nightmare about Mom again last night. She came into my room instead of yours because she didn't want to wake you up. Wade felt a pang of guilt. I didn't know that. It's okay. I let her sleep in my bed and told her stories until she fell asleep again. Trevor stared out the window. I told her Mom wasn't coming back, but that was okay because we have each other. Wade struggled to find adequate words. That was a very kind and brave thing to do, Trevor. The boy shrugged. She's my sister. Those 3 simple words contained volumes. Despite his own trauma, Trevor had found the strength to comfort and protect Zoe. Wade made a mental note to discuss this with Dr. Torres. It was healthy for siblings to support each other, but he wanted to ensure Trevor wasn't taking on too much responsibility. At home, Wade found an email from Christine waiting on his secure server. Natalie called again. Asked specifically if I thought you'd be amenable to a civil meeting regarding some personal items she left behind. I kept responses vague but non-committal. She mentioned returning to the area briefly for business meetings in 3 weeks. Everything was aligning according to plan. Wade drafted a brief response thanking Christine for the information, then continued preparations for the weekend retreat. As evening fell, the children worked on packing their bags for the trip, a task Dr. Torres had suggested to give them a sense of control. Wade used the time to coordinate final details with Jack and Victoria. Phase 2 implementation confirmed. Jack reported over their secure line. Villa security systems installed and tested. Surveillance coverage complete. Entry and exit points controlled. Legal documentation prepared, Victoria added. Restraining orders ready to file the moment they land on U.S. soil. Financial authorities on standby in 3 countries. Wade reviewed their timeline once more. 3 weeks from now, they arrive thinking they're closing a major investment deal. Instead, they'll find themselves facing the consequences of their actions. Friday arrived with clear skies and unusual excitement from both children. The retreat represented their first trip away from home since Natalie's departure, and despite the therapeutic purpose, they approached it with the enthusiasm normally reserved for vacations. Dad, can we go hiking at the lake? Trevor asked as they loaded the car. I read that there are trails with views of the whole valley. If Dr. Torres approves, absolutely. Wade secured their bags in the trunk. The schedule includes some recreational time between therapy sessions. Zoe clutched Mr. Flopsy to her chest. Will there be other kids my age? Yes, sweetheart. Dr. Torres said there's a girl named Emma who's 6, just like you. The 2-hour drive to Lake Tahoe passed pleasantly, with the children pointing out landmarks and asking questions about the retreat. Upon arrival, Wade was impressed by the security of the location, a private lodge accessed by a single road, surrounded by forest, with clear sight lines and multiple exit routes. Dr. Torres greeted them at the entrance. Welcome, Harmons. Trevor and Zoe. The other children are in the recreation room if you'd like to meet them. Ms. Wilson can show you the way. As the children followed the assistant, Dr. Torres turned to Wade. Everything proceeding as planned on your end? Wade nodded. They've taken the bait. Meeting scheduled in exactly 3 weeks. Good. This weekend will give the children strength for whatever comes next. She gestured toward the main lodge. We should join the welcome circle. The first group session begins in 15 minutes. The weekend exceeded Wade's expectations. Trevor participated in the therapy sessions with growing openness, finally expressing the anger and betrayal he'd kept tightly controlled for months. Zoe connected immediately with Emma, finding comfort in shared experiences of maternal abandonment. During a Saturday afternoon break, Wade sat on the lodge's deck overlooking the lake, watching the children play a supervised game on the lawn below. Dr. Torres joined him, offering coffee. They're showing remarkable resilience, she observed. Especially Trevor. His protective instincts toward Zoe are balancing with his own need to process grief. Wade nodded. He told me Zoe had a nightmare recently and went to him instead of me. He comforted her, told her stories until she fell back asleep. That's both touching and concerning. Dr. Torres sipped her coffee. Sibling support is healthy, but we need to ensure he doesn't take on a parental role prematurely. How do I balance that? I want to encourage their bond without burdening him. Acknowledge and appreciate his protective instincts while making it clear that the ultimate responsibility for Zoe's well-being is yours. Dr. Torres watched the children below. And continue providing safe spaces like this where both children can be honest about their feelings. By Sunday evening, when they returned home, subtle but significant changes were evident in both children. Trevor slept through the night without his usual restlessness. Zoe, who had previously insisted on leaving her door open, asked if she could try sleeping with it closed like big girls do. I can do it because I know you're right down the hall, she explained as Wade tucked her in. And Trevor is right next door if I get scared. That's very brave, Zoe Bear. Wade kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you. Dr. Torres said brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing things even when you are scared. Dr. Torres is very wise. As Wade closed Zoe's door, leaving it open just an inch at her request, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The weekend had demonstrated what was possible for his children: healing, growth, eventual joy. It strengthened his resolve to complete what he'd started. The following morning, Wade received confirmation that the villa for the upcoming meeting had been successfully prepared with surveillance equipment and security features that could be remotely controlled. Jack's team had created the perfect environment for the confrontation: secure, isolated, and completely under Wade's control. They've sent their financial disclosures, Jack reported during their daily briefing. As expected, they've embellished the business metrics and concealed certain expenses. Let Richard Keller express minor concerns, but continued interest, Wade instructed. I want them anxious but confident the deal will close. That evening, Wade received an unexpected call from Christine. Her voice was tense, urgent. Wade, I just got off the phone with Natalie. She asked me to do something I'm not comfortable with. What did she want? She wants me to mention the children's struggles during our next call, specifically to tell her that Zoe reads the same book every night, the one Natalie used to read to her. Wade's grip tightened on the phone. Why would she want that? I think she's feeling guilty, or at least wants to appear that she is. Christine sounded troubled. She asked specific questions about the children, their routines, whether they ask about her, how they're coping. Wade considered this information. Natalie's interest could be genuine concern or, more likely, preparation for a custody challenge. Would you be willing to tell her what she wants to hear? With some strategic modifications? What do you mean? Tell her about Zoe and the book, but emphasize how traumatized both children were by her sudden disappearance. how they've slowly begun to heal through therapy and stability. Christine was quiet for a moment. You want me to make her feel guilty? I want her to understand the consequences of her actions, Wade corrected. And yes, if guilt makes her and Dominic more likely to return for the meeting, I'll use that. I'll do it, Christine agreed. Not for you, but for those children. The following day, Wade monitored communications between Natalie and Dominic through the backdoor he'd established in their system. After Christine's call, they'd argued, their first significant disagreement captured by Wade's surveillance. They're just children, Natalie had insisted. They didn't deserve to be abandoned like that. Don't go soft now, Dominic had responded coldly. We agreed the kids were Wade's problem. They're a complication we don't need. You don't understand. Zoe is still reading that book, waiting for me to come back and finish the story. Because children are manipulative by nature. It's an evolutionary adaptation to ensure adults care for them. The argument had escalated, with Dominic reminding Natalie that returning to their previous life was impossible now that they'd taken Wade's money and established their business. Wade forwarded the recording to Victoria, adding it to their growing evidence file. The exchange revealed important information. Natalie was experiencing guilt, and Dominic was growing impatient with her emotional responses. That vulnerability could be exploited. The day before the scheduled meeting, Wade's surveillance captured another significant development. Dominic speaking on an encrypted line with someone he addressed as Kharkov. The investment closes tomorrow, Dominic said. $5 million, enough to cover everything we owe you plus significant expansion. Kharkov's response was direct. It better. My associates are not pleased with the delays. The consequences for further disappointment would be severe. After the call ended, Dominic poured himself a large drink and stared out the window of their apartment, his expression tense. Wade captured still images of the exchange, adding them to his intelligence file. Further research identified Kharkov as Anton Kharkov, a mid-level figure in Eastern European organized crime with connections to money laundering operations in southern France. This explained the pressure Dominic was under and his insistence on returning for the meeting despite Natalie's reluctance. Wade shared this information with Jack during their final planning session. This adds another dimension, Jack noted. If Dominic has obligations to Kharkov's organization, he's desperate in ways we hadn't fully recognized. Which makes him more dangerous, but also more predictable, Wade concluded. He needs this deal to happen. He can't afford to walk away. What about Natalie? The guilt suggests she's not fully committed to Dominic's plan anymore. Wade considered this. She's wavering, but not enough to come clean or return the money. We'll use that ambivalence to separate them during the confrontation. As the final preparations fell into place, Wade spent the evening with Trevor and Zoe, attentive to signs of their ongoing recovery. Trevor had received an invitation to join an advanced chess program through his school, recognition of his exceptional strategic abilities. Zoe had gone an entire week without calling Wade during school hours, a significant milestone in managing her separation anxiety. Are you going on another business trip soon? Trevor asked as Wade helped him with math homework. Just a day trip next week, Wade answered carefully. Mrs. Delaney will stay with you, and I'll be back the same evening. Trevor studied his father's face. Is it about Mom? The direct question didn't surprise Wade. Trevor had always been perceptive, and his instincts had only sharpened since Natalie's betrayal. Yes, Wade admitted. It's about resolving some legal matters related to what happened. Good. Trevor returned to his homework. The sooner it's all fixed, the sooner we can move on. Out of the mouths of children. Wade reflected on the simple wisdom in Trevor's statement. That's exactly what this was about. Not revenge, but resolution. Creating the closure his children needed to heal completely. After the children were asleep, Wade retreated to his office for final preparations. He reviewed the dossiers on Natalie and Dominic one last time, ensuring he'd accounted for all variables. The villa was ready, the legal documents prepared, the authorities on standby. On his desk sat a small box containing USB drives with copies of all evidence, financial records, communications, surveillance photos, and the original video Natalie had left. Each piece documented a specific betrayal, a deliberate choice to destroy their family for money. Wade also kept a separate file, moments of the children's pain captured during those first terrible weeks. Trevor standing at the window on his birthday, watching for a mother who never came. Zoe crying herself to sleep, clutching the book Natalie used to read to her. These weren't part of the legal case. They were reminders of why this confrontation was necessary. Wade closed the files and leaned back in his chair, studying the photographs of Trevor and Zoe on his desk. Recent photos, taken at the Lake Tahoe retreat, showed subtle but significant changes, a tentative smile from Trevor, genuine laughter from Zoe as they hiked along the lakeshore. They were healing, finding their way forward. Wade's responsibility was to remove the lingering threats to that healing. The legal limbo of Natalie's abandonment, the financial destruction she'd orchestrated, the possibility she might someday return to disrupt their lives again. The plan wasn't about punishment, though that would certainly occur. It was about protection and finality, creating a clean break that would allow all of them to move forward. Wade's phone chimed with a message from Jack. Final confirmation received. Subjects arriving on United Flight 2437, scheduled landing 10:45 a.m. Will proceed directly to Villa for 2 p.m. meeting. Wade replied simply, all preparations complete. Phase 3 commences as scheduled. Tomorrow, Natalie and Dominic would walk into the villa expecting to meet Richard Keller and secure a $5 million investment. Instead, they would face Wade and the consequences of their actions. Not with rage or vengeance, but with something far more dangerous, documented justice from the man they had grievously underestimated. Chapter 7. Return of the Deserters. United Airlines Flight 2437 from Paris touched down at San Francisco International Airport at 10:42 a.m., 3 minutes ahead of schedule. Wade observed the arrival from his surveillance position in the terminal's coffee shop, his appearance altered with subtle but effective changes, glasses, a different haircut, casual clothing unlike his usual attire. Jack's voice came through his earpiece. Target sighted. Terminal G, coming through customs now. On his tablet, Wade watched the security camera feed as Natalie and Dominic appeared at the customs checkpoint. He barely recognized his ex-wife. Her blonde hair was now cut in a sleek bob with darker highlights. Sunglasses perched on her head, and her fitted blazer and slim pants screamed European luxury. Traveling light, Jack noted. 1 check bag each, plus carry-ons. They don't plan to stay long, Wade replied. Dominic guided Natalie through the terminal with a possessive hand at the small of her back. Even through the grainy security footage, Wade could see the tension between them. Natalie's shoulders were rigid, her steps slightly out of sync with Dominic's assertive pace. Tension in paradise, Jack observed. Expected, given their recent arguments. Wade closed the tablet as they disappeared into a taxi. They'll head directly to the Atherton Hotel. Confirmation, confirmed. Reservation for Mr. and Mrs. Collins for 3 nights in a premium suite. All entry points covered. Room 718 has been prepared as requested. The Atherton Hotel stood as a monument to discreet luxury in the heart of Nob Hill, its limestone facade and understated signage appealing to those who preferred privacy with their indulgence. By the time Natalie and Dominic arrived, Wade was already positioned in a surveillance room established in a service area adjacent to their floor. They're approaching the front desk, reported Sophia, one of Jack's team who had been placed as a concierge at the hotel weeks earlier. Wade watched on the monitors as Dominic approached the reception desk, Natalie standing slightly behind him. Their body language told a clear story. He dominated the interaction while she scanned the lobby with the wary alertness of someone expecting trouble. I have a reservation for Collins, Dominic told the receptionist, his accent carefully modulated to sound vaguely European without specificity. Yes, Mr. Collins. We have you in one of our premium suites for 3 nights. The receptionist, another of Jack's associates, smiled professionally. May I see your identification and credit card, please? As Dominic completed the check-in process, Wade focused on Natalie. She'd lost weight since the yacht photos, her cheekbones more pronounced, her once vibrant complexion now maintained by expensive cosmetics rather than natural health. Her fingers tapped restlessly against her handbag, a nervous tick Wade had never seen during their marriage. They've been given the key cards, Sophia reported. Heading to the elevators now. Wade switched to the elevator camera feed. Once inside the private space, Dominic's solicitous demeanor vanished. He checked his watch and muttered something that made Natalie flinch slightly. In their suite, surveillance devices activated automatically as they entered. Wade had ensured the equipment was state-of-the-art, completely undetectable and capable of capturing both audio and visual data. "I need a drink," Dominic announced, moving immediately to the minibar. Natalie placed her carry-on carefully on the luggage rack. "We should review the materials for tomorrow's meeting. Keller seems meticulous. He'll expect us to know our numbers." Dominic poured a generous scotch. "The numbers are perfect because I created them precisely for this purpose." He took a long swallow. "Your job is to be charming and talk about the experiential luxury market or whatever nonsense these tech types want to hear." "I understand the business better than you think," Natalie countered, her voice gaining an edge Wade had rarely heard during their marriage. "I've been handling client communication for months, and I've been handling the actual money," Dominic replied dismissively. "Speaking of which, did you contact that friend of yours about accessing the safe deposit box?" Christine said she'd talked to Wade, but she can't guarantee anything. Natalie sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking exhausted. "Maybe we should just leave it. The jewelry's not worth the risk of confrontation." Dominic slammed his glass down. "200,000 isn't worth the risk? With Kharkov breathing down our necks? Don't be naive, Natalie. I'm being practical. Wade isn't the same person I left. Christine says he's different now. More focused, more determined. He's a finance guy playing weekend warrior with a gym membership," Dominic scoffed. "Nothing to fear from men like that." Wade allowed himself a small smile at the dramatic irony of Dominic's statement. After unpacking, Dominic consulted his watch again. "I have a meeting. Won't be more than an hour or two." "What meeting?" "We just arrived." Natalie's suspicion was evident in her tone. "Business connection. Potential client referrals." Dominic straightened his tie in the mirror. "Use the time to rest. You look tired, and we need you fresh for tomorrow." The casual cruelty of the remark registered on Natalie's face before she controlled her expression. "Fine. I might take a walk later. Clear my head. Stay in the hotel vicinity. We can't risk being recognized." With that instruction, Dominic left the suite, the door closing with a definitive click behind him. Wade switched to the tracking system. One of Jack's operatives followed Dominic from the hotel to a waiting car. "Target heading north on Powell," reported the operative. "Appears to be headed to Fisherman's Wharf area. Stay with him," Wade instructed. "Jack, you've got the restaurant covered? All angles. If this is who we think it is, we'll get everything." Wade turned his attention back to Natalie, who had moved to the window of their suite. She stood looking out at the San Francisco skyline, her posture suggesting the weight of decisions being reconsidered. After several minutes, she reached for her phone and dialed. "Christine? It's me. Are you free to talk?" Wade could hear both sides of the conversation through the surveillance. "I'm surprised to hear from you," Christine replied, her tone carefully neutral as they had rehearsed. "Are you in town?" "Yes, just arrived. Business trip with Dominic." Natalie paused. "How are they, Christine? The children? You promised you'd tell me honestly." Christine's voice softened with genuine emotion. "They're surviving, Natalie. Trevor finally started talking again about 3 months ago. He's in chess club now, apparently quite talented. Zoe still has nightmares, but less frequently." Natalie sank onto the edge of the bed. "Do they ask about me?" The question hung in the air for a moment before Christine answered. "Trevor doesn't. He's built a wall around that part of his heart. Zoe still reads that book every night. The one you used to read to her. She told me once she's saving the last chapter for when you come back." Wade watched as Natalie pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes closing briefly. "And Wade?" she asked finally. "Different. Focused entirely on the children. He's not the man you left, Nat. There's a hardness to him now." "Does he hate me?" "I think he's beyond that," Christine replied carefully. "Hate would require emotional investment. He's channeled everything into protecting Trevor and Zoe." After ending the call, Natalie sat motionless for several minutes. Then she gathered her purse and left the suite. "Target 2 is on the move," Sophia reported, heading to the lobby. "Stay with her, but maintain distance," Wade directed. "I'm interested in where she goes." Natalie took a taxi from the hotel. The driver, another of Jack's operatives, confirmed her requested destination. "Woodside, please. I'll direct you to the specific address when we're closer." Wade wasn't surprised. Some part of him had anticipated this, Natalie's need to see the home and children she had abandoned. He switched his focus back to Dominic, who had arrived at a waterfront restaurant in Fisherman's Wharf. Jack's voice came through the comm. Target is meeting with Alexei Kharkov and another individual we've identified as Martin Delos, known money launderer, wanted in 3 countries. The surveillance feed showed Dominic seated at a corner table with 2 men, one lean and sharp-featured, the other heavy-set with an expensive watch that flashed as he gestured emphatically. Audio is limited due to restaurant noise, Jack continued. But we're capturing enough. They're discussing payment schedules and expressing dissatisfaction with delays. Record everything, Wade instructed. This strengthens our international case substantially. Meanwhile, Natalie's taxi arrived in Woodside, stopping a discreet distance from their former home. She paid the driver and asked him to wait, then walked slowly down the street. Wade had anticipated this possibility and had arranged for Mrs. Delaney to be visible in the front yard with a selection of Trevor and Zoe's toys scattered about, evidence of children living normal lives despite their mother's abandonment. From across the street, Natalie stood watching the house for nearly 20 minutes. Her expression transformed as she took in the basketball hoop Wade had installed for Trevor, the colorful chalk drawings on the driveway that were undoubtedly Zoe's work, the new swing set visible in the backyard. When Mrs. Delaney went inside, Natalie moved closer, pausing at the edge of the property. For a moment, Wade thought she might approach the door, but she stopped herself, one hand rising to touch the locket at her throat, a gift from Wade on their 10th anniversary. The raw emotion on her face was unexpected. Through the surveillance camera positioned in a tree across the street, Wade could see tears tracking silently down her cheeks as she looked at the home she had abandoned. What was she feeling? Regret? Longing? Or merely nostalgia for a life that had become inconvenient? Wade found himself genuinely curious about the answer. After taking a final long look, Natalie walked back to the waiting taxi and returned to the city. By late afternoon, Wade was back at his temporary command center near the villa where tomorrow's confrontation would take place. Jack joined him, bringing photographs from Dominic's meeting. Kharkov isn't happy, Jack reported, spreading the images on the table. Body language shows significant tension. Dominic promised the investment funds would clear his debt and provide capital for a new laundering operation. And Delos's involvement confirms our suspicions about their European accounts, Wade noted. Victoria has forwarded this to our contacts at Interpol, correct? Yes, though they're still holding off on action until our signal. Wade's phone chimed with a message from Richard Keller's business line, a final confirmation from Dominic about tomorrow's meeting. Looking forward to discussing the investment opportunity in person. My assistant will forward arrival details for the villa. We anticipate a productive partnership. D. Reeves. Wade composed a brief, businesslike response, then turned to the real focus of his concern. Trevor and Zoe safely arrived at the lakeside cabin with Dr. Torres an hour ago, Jack confirmed. My team has established a security perimeter. No one approaches without multiple identifications. Good. Wade pulled up the security feed from the cabin on his tablet. The children were visible in the living room, Trevor reading while Zoe colored at a table nearby. Dr. Torres worked in the kitchen, occasionally glancing at her charges with professional attention. They looked peaceful, unaware of the confrontation about to unfold. Wade intended to keep it that way. Christine delivered the final piece of information to Natalie. Jack continued. Evidence of Dominic's side dealings and his plans to eventually leave her once he's extracted maximum value from your accounts. How did she take it? Surveillance indicates she confronted him in their suite 30 minutes ago. The argument was significant. Wade reviewed the footage. Natalie brandishing printed emails showing Dominic's communications with another woman. Not romantic messages, but financial discussions about after we've concluded the current arrangement. You were planning to leave me? Natalie's voice shook with rage. After everything I gave up for you. Dominic's response was cold, calculating. Don't be dramatic, Natalie. Business contingencies aren't personal betrayals. You called her darling and discussed our future together once you've tied up loose ends. What loose ends, Dominic? Me. The argument escalated until Dominic grabbed Natalie's arm with enough force to make her wince. You became a liability the moment you started getting sentimental about those kids. Remember your position here. Without me, you're just a woman who abandoned her children and stole her husband's money. No one to protect you from the consequences. The threat hung in the air between them. Natalie pulled free of his grip, her expression hardening into something Wade recognized from the worst moments of their marriage. calculated self-preservation. "You need me for this investment meeting," she said, her voice steadier. "Richard Keller wants to meet both principals of the business. You can't charm him alone." Dominic's expression shifted to the professional mask Wade had observed in photographs. "Precisely. Which is why we'll postpone this discussion until after tomorrow's meeting. $5 million buys a lot of perspective, Natalie." The détente was clearly temporary, both of them aware that their partnership had fundamentally changed. Dominic left to clear his head, while Natalie remained in the suite, going through all the materials Christine had provided, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "Perfect," Wade observed. "They'll arrive tomorrow divided, suspicious of each other, and emotionally compromised. Are you sure you want to go through with the direct confrontation?" Jack asked. "We have enough evidence for legal proceedings without personal involvement." "This isn't just about legal justice," Wade replied. "They need to see the consequences of what they've done. Especially Natalie." Jack studied him. "This isn't about revenge, is it?" "No." Wade's voice was calm, certain. "It's about closure. For the children, primarily, but also for me. Clean breaks heal better than ragged ones." As evening fell, Wade made final preparations at the villa. The security systems were tested once more, the presentation materials arranged for maximum impact, all exits secured with controls that could be operated remotely. In one room, monitors displayed surveillance from multiple sources. The hotel suite where Natalie and Dominic were silently sharing a room while pointedly ignoring each other. The restaurant where they'd made dinner reservations but barely spoken. The lakeside cabin where his children were now preparing for bed. Trevor helping Zoe brush her teeth as Dr. Torres supervised. Wade opened a secure folder on his laptop containing videos he'd arranged chronologically. Trevor standing silently at his bedroom window on his birthday, watching for a mother who never came. Zoe crying through a night terror, calling for mommy over and over. Therapy sessions where both children struggled to verbalize their feelings of abandonment. These were the weapons he would use tomorrow, not guns or threats, but the unvarnished truth about the pain Natalie and Dominic had caused. A muscle in Wade's jaw twitched as he reviewed the material. His expression wasn't angry but resolved, a soldier preparing for a necessary mission rather than a wounded husband seeking revenge. Jack returned from his final security sweep of the property. Everything set. Entry points secured, surveillance active, contingency plans in place. And the documents? Victoria delivered them personally. All legal requirements met, notary on standby. Wade nodded, closing the laptop. "Then we're ready." "Are you?" Jack's question was pointed. "This woman was your wife for 11 years. The mother of your children. Tomorrow will be intense." Wade considered the question seriously. "I was ready the moment she abandoned our children at school, without explanation. Everything since then has just been preparation to ensure justice is complete." Later that night, in his temporary quarters at the command center, Wade called the lakeside cabin. Dr. Torres answered, her voice hushed. "They're both asleep," she reported. "Trevor asked once if you were handling the mom situation, as he called it. I redirected as we discussed. And Zoe? Some anxiety at bedtime, but she settled when Trevor read to her. She's showing remarkable attachment to her brother's caregiving. They protect each other," Wade noted, a hint of pride in his voice. "Yes, though we'll need to address that eventually. Trevor shouldn't feel responsible for managing his sister's emotional needs. But for now, their mutual support is healthy." After finishing the call, Wade performed his final preparation ritual, reviewing photographs of Trevor and Zoe from before Natalie's betrayal, during the worst of the aftermath, and recent images showing their gradual healing. The contrast was stark and motivating. His children deserved complete closure, not the lingering threat that Natalie might someday return to disrupt their rebuilt lives. Tomorrow would provide that closure, one way or another. Wade set his alarm for 5 a.m., though he doubted he would sleep much. The culmination of months of planning was just hours away. By this time tomorrow, Natalie and Dominic would have faced the consequences of their actions and made their choices. And regardless of those choices, Wade and his children would finally be free to move forward without looking back. Chapter 8. The Trap Closes. The villa stood in splendid isolation among the rolling vineyards of Sonoma County, its Mediterranean architecture and private access road creating the perfect impression of exclusive luxury. By noon, The property was prepared in exacting detail, each element positioned for maximum impact. Richard Keller's assistant had provided Natalie and Dominic with precise directions and a gate code. Wade watched on the surveillance monitors as their rented Mercedes approached the entrance at 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the scheduled meeting. Punctuality suggests eagerness, Jack noted from his position at the security controls. They're desperate for this deal. Through the camera trained on the car's interior, Wade observed a telling transformation. Dominic adjusted his tie and pasted on a practiced smile that erased all traces of the tension visible moments before. Natalie applied fresh lipstick, her hands betraying a slight tremor before she, too, arranged her features into a mask of confident charm. "Look at them," Wade said, preparing to play their roles. "Partners in crime again." Despite last night's argument, Jack agreed. Amazing what $5 million can do for relationship counseling. Wade moved to the main room where the confrontation would occur. The space was impressive, vaulted ceilings, massive windows overlooking the vineyard, furnishings that communicated tasteful wealth. On one wall, concealed panels could slide open to reveal multiple screens displaying the evidence Wade had compiled. There at the door, Jack's voice came through the earpiece. "Showtime." Wade positioned himself in an adjoining room, watching through a one-way mirror as the housekeeper, another of Jack's operatives, greeted Natalie and Dominic. "Mr. and Mrs. Reeves? Welcome to Villa Montanaro. Mr. Keller will join you shortly. May I offer refreshments while you wait?" "Just water, thank you," Dominic replied, his accent again carefully modulated to sound vaguely European. "And it's Mr. Reeves and Miss Spencer. Business partners, not spouses." The correction was interesting, a small attempt to distance themselves from the appearance of impropriety, perhaps anticipating questions about their relationship during business discussions. "Of course, sir. Please make yourselves comfortable in the main salon. Mr. Keller should be with you momentarily." As the housekeeper departed, Dominic and Natalie surveyed the room with the calculated assessment of professionals evaluating both the opportunity and potential escape routes. "Impressive," Dominic murmured, running a finger along the edge of an antique desk. "Keller has excellent taste." "And significant resources," Natalie added, her gaze taking in the original artwork on the walls. "These are museum-quality pieces." Dominic moved to the windows, noting the isolation of the property. "Quite remote. Excellent for privacy, though I'd prefer somewhere with better access to main roads." Wade recognized the comment for what it was, a criminal's instinctive assessment of getaway options. It confirmed again the type of man Dominic truly was. From his vantage point, Wade studied Natalie more carefully. She wore an elegant navy dress that conveyed business professionalism while highlighting her figure. Her hair and makeup were flawless, yet there was a brittleness to her composure, visible in the tight set of her shoulders and the way her gaze kept returning to the door. "He's late," she noted, checking her watch. 3 minutes past the appointment time. "Power move," Dominic replied with a dismissive wave. "Wealthy investors often make you wait to establish dominance. Play along." 5 more minutes passed. Dominic's confident facade began to show cracks. He checked his watch repeatedly, paced the length of the windows, adjusted his tie for the 3rd time. "Something's wrong," Natalie said finally. "This doesn't feel right." At that moment, Wade gave the signal. Throughout the villa, subtle mechanical sounds indicated the security system activating. Reinforced shutters sliding into place over the windows, electronic locks engaging on all exterior doors. Dominic noticed immediately, his head snapping toward the nearest window where the view of the vineyard was now partially obscured by security shutters. "What the hell?" He strode to the main door, trying the handle. "Locked." "Dom? What's happening?" Natalie's voice rose with the first notes of panic. Wade watched Dominic's expression shift from confusion to alert wariness. "Security system," he said, eyes scanning the room for cameras or other surveillance. High-end properties often have them, but this activation timing is concerning. The moment had arrived. Wade straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and opened the hidden door connecting to the main salon. The shock on their faces as he stepped into the room was everything he had anticipated. Natalie's hand flew to her throat, her face draining of color. Dominic's reaction was more controlled, a narrowing of the eyes, a slight shift in posture as he evaluated this new threat. "Hello, Natalie," Wade said calmly. Dominic, I believe we're overdue for a conversation. Wade. Natalie whispered his name like a failed prayer. How? How did I orchestrate this meeting? Wade moved further into the room, maintaining a careful distance. The same way I've been monitoring your activities for the past 4 months. With patience, resources, and motivation you clearly underestimated. Dominic recovered quickly, his expression shifting to one of professional assessment. Richard Keller never existed. A digital phantom, Wade confirmed. Created specifically to lure you back to face the consequences of your actions. Dominic's hand slipped toward his jacket pocket. Wade shook his head slightly. I wouldn't. The security team has the villa surrounded, and you're on camera from multiple angles. Any weapon you're carrying would only add charges to your considerable legal problems. Dominic's hand stilled. What do you want? Justice. Wade moved to the control panel on the wall, pressing a sequence that caused the hidden panels to slide open, revealing multiple screens. But first, understanding. The central screen activated, displaying a comprehensive timeline of Natalie and Dominic's scheme, from their first meeting at the charity gala to their most recent financial transactions. You've been quite busy, Wade noted, his tone almost conversational. 8 months of preparation, gradually transferring funds, creating false documentation, establishing new identities, building an elaborate exit strategy while maintaining the facade of a normal family life. Natalie sank into the nearest chair, her legs seemingly unable to support her. Dominic remained standing, his eyes darting between Wade and the displays. This is harassment, Dominic tried, his voice lacking conviction. We'll contact the authorities. Please do. Wade gestured to a phone on the side table. I'm sure they'd be particularly interested in your meeting yesterday with Alexei Kharkov and Martin Delos, both of whom are currently under investigation for money laundering in multiple jurisdictions. Dominic's face tightened. You've been watching us. Comprehensively. Wade activated another screen showing surveillance photos of their activities in France, their meetings in San Francisco, even their argument in the hotel suite the previous night. I've documented everything: financial fraud, identity theft, child abandonment, connections to organized crime. He turned to Natalie, whose complexion had gone ashen. Did you know about Dominic's criminal connections when you abandoned our children at school? Or was that just a bonus discovery after you'd already committed to destroying our family? I didn't, Natalie began, then stopped, unable to complete the lie under Wade's steady gaze. You didn't what? Didn't know? Didn't care? Didn't consider what would happen to Trevor and Zoe when they realized their mother had disappeared without even saying goodbye. Wade activated the next screen, which began playing footage from the children's therapy sessions, carefully selected clips that Dr. Torres had agreed could be used for this purpose alone. Trevor sat rigid in a child-sized chair, his face expressionless. She left because she didn't want to be our mom anymore. That's what she said in the video. Dr. Torres's voice came from off-camera. How did that make you feel, Trevor? A long pause. Nothing. I don't feel anything about her anymore. The footage shifted to Zoe, clutching Mr. Flopsy as she spoke in a small voice. I had a dream that Mommy came back, but when I ran to hug her, she turned into smoke. Dr. Torres says that's my brain trying to understand she's really gone. Natalie pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Stop it. Please. Why? Wade asked, his voice steady. You created this reality. The least you can do is witness it. The next clip showed Trevor on his birthday, standing at his bedroom window for hours, watching the driveway despite Wade's gentle attempts to engage him in celebration. He waited all day, Wade said quietly, convinced you wouldn't miss his birthday, no matter what had happened. That there must have been some mistake, some misunderstanding that would be cleared up when you arrived with a present and an explanation. Dominic stepped forward, his expression hardening into professional calculation. Emotional manipulation is an interesting tactic, Mr. Harmon, but ultimately futile. What exactly do you hope to accomplish here? Accountability. Wade turned to him. You've destroyed families before. Robert Keller in Santa Barbara committed suicide after his wife left with your assistance. Gerard Phillips in Oregon lost everything, including his freedom temporarily, after you orchestrated his wife's departure and subsequent legal attacks. Dominic's expression flickered briefly, surprised that Wade had connected these cases, quickly masked by renewed composure. Those are unsubstantiated allegations without relevance to our current situation. They're documented facts that form part of an extensive case file I've prepared for authorities in 4 countries. Wade activated another screen showing the legal documentation. Your pattern is established and provable. The only question remaining is what happens next. Wade pressed another control. A hidden door opened on the opposite wall, revealing a conference room with legal documents arranged on the table. Your remaining assets, including accounts you believed were secure, have been frozen, Wade informed them. The business you established in France is under investigation for money laundering. Your accounts under aliases in Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the Cayman Islands have been identified and frozen pending legal proceedings. Dominic's composure finally cracked, his face contorting with rage. You have no authority to. I have connections in international finance and law enforcement who recognize the merit of my evidence. Wade cut him off. People who understand that coordinated action against sophisticated financial criminals requires unconventional approaches. Natalie looked up, her makeup streaked with tears. What do you want from us, Wade? I'm offering a choice. Wade gestured to the conference room. Behind that door are documents prepared by my attorney. They include full confessions, financial restitution agreements, and in your case, Natalie, relinquishment of parental rights. You want me to give up my children? Her voice broke on the words. You already gave them up, Wade replied, his tone not unkind despite the harshness of the truth. I'm merely asking you to make it legal and spare them years of uncertainty. Dominic gave a harsh laugh. And if we refuse to sign your documents? In answer, Wade activated the final screen, which displayed active warrants for Dominic's arrest in 3 countries, along with evidence packages prepared for prosecutors. Then within the hour, this evidence will be released to all relevant authorities. Your accounts will remain frozen. Your criminality will become public record, and you will face prosecution in multiple jurisdictions with no possibility of favorable plea arrangements. The reality of their situation settled over both of them differently. Dominic's expression became calculating, clearly assessing options and outcomes of a professional criminal. Natalie seemed to collapse inward, the full weight of consequences finally breaking through her denial. And if we sign? Dominic asked. The evidence remains secured as insurance against future violations. You return all remaining funds from Wade's accounts. You never contact the Harmon family again. Wade's gaze hardened. 1 violation, 1 attempt at retaliation or reconnection, and everything goes to authorities immediately. Dominic took a step toward Wade, his body language suddenly threatening. You self-righteous bastard. You think you've won because you set up a clever trap? Do you have any idea who I'm connected to? The resources I can access. I know exactly who you're connected to, Wade replied calmly. Your meeting with Kharkov yesterday was quite illuminating. He's quite displeased with your performance, isn't he? Mention consequences if you failed to deliver the promised funds. Something dangerous flashed in Dominic's eyes. He lunged forward suddenly, hands reaching for Wade's throat. Wade sidestepped with practiced ease, using Dominic's momentum against him. A quick strike to the solar plexus, followed by a precise application of pressure to the shoulder joint, and Dominic found himself face down on the floor, arm twisted painfully behind his back. My military background wasn't in administration, Wade informed him quietly. Intelligence operations often require hands-on intervention in uncontrolled environments. Jack entered the room, weapon visible at his hip. Everything under control. Yes. Wade released Dominic and stepped back. Mr. Reeves was just demonstrating why security precautions were necessary for this meeting. Dominic rose slowly, straightening his jacket with as much dignity as he could muster, his expression murderous. The documents, Wade continued as if the altercation hadn't occurred, are comprehensive but fair. They provide a path forward that minimizes further damage to all parties. I want to see my children, Natalie said suddenly. Before I sign anything, I want to see Trevor and Zoe. Wade shook his head. That's not possible. They're my children. Her voice rose in desperation. They're traumatized children who are finally beginning to heal, Wade corrected. Seeing you now would only reopen wounds that have barely started to close. He activated one more video clip, Zoe in a recent therapy session. If your mom walked through that door right now, what would you say to her? Dr. Torres asked gently. Zoe clutched Mr. Flopsy tighter. I would ask her why she didn't love us enough to stay. And then I would hide behind Daddy, because I'd be scared she might take me away from him and Trevor. The clip ended. Natalie sat in stunned silence, the reality of her children's perception finally penetrating. They're afraid of you, Natalie, Wade said quietly. Not because of anything I've said, but because of what you did. They're afraid you'll appear suddenly and disrupt the security they've fought so hard to rebuild. Natalie covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Dominic watched her with thinly veiled disgust, his own concerns clearly centered on self-preservation rather than emotional revelation. How long do we have to decide? He asked Wade. 1 hour. Wade checked his watch. The documents are in the conference room. You can review them together or separately. A notary is present to witness signatures. And then what? We just walk away. Dominic's tone was skeptical. You'll be escorted to the airport and placed on flights to separate destinations, Wade explained. Dominic to Europe, where I'm sure Kharkov will be interested in discussing your failure to secure the promised investment. Natalie to a location of her choosing, with enough resources to establish a modest new beginning. Dominic's gaze sharpened. You're letting us go? After all this elaborate setup? This isn't about imprisonment, Wade replied. It's about resolution and protection. My children need finality, not an extended legal battle that forces them to relive their trauma in courtrooms. He turned to Natalie, who had finally regained some composure. It's also about choices. You chose to abandon your family, Natalie. Now you can choose to do one decent thing for the children you left behind. Give them legal certainty about their future. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Dominic straightened his shoulders and headed toward the conference room. An hour is sufficient to review legal documents. I assume your attorney drafted them competently. Natalie remained seated, looking lost. Wade, she said quietly. I never thought it would. I didn't understand what would happen to them. Yes, you did, Wade replied, not unkindly. You simply convinced yourself they would adapt like children do in divorce situations. You chose not to imagine the reality of abandonment trauma because it would have interfered with the narrative you needed to justify your actions. He turned to follow Dominic, then paused. 1 hour, Natalie. For once, make a choice that puts Trevor and Zoe's needs before your own. In the monitoring room adjacent to the conference area, Wade watched as Dominic reviewed each document, occasionally making notes, but showing no emotional reaction to the damning confessions he was being asked to sign. Natalie approached the documents differently, reading each page with visible distress, occasionally wiping tears from her cheeks. She lingered longest over the parental rights relinquishment, her hand trembling as she held the pages. She'll sign, Jack predicted, watching the monitors. The guilt is too heavy now that she's confronted with the consequences. And Dominic? Wade asked. 50-50. He's weighing options, calculating outcomes. The evidence against him is comprehensive, but men like him always believe they can find an escape route. The hour passed in tense silence. When Wade re-entered the conference room, Natalie sat with the documents neatly stacked before her, pen in hand but pages still unsigned. Dominic stood by the window, his expression unreadable. Time to decide, Wade announced. Dominic turned, his decision evident in his posture. I'm not signing confessions to crimes that would be difficult to prove in court. Your evidence is circumstantial at best. It's sufficient for indictment in multiple jurisdictions, Wade replied. But the choice is yours. I'll take my chances with the legal system, Dominic said with a cold smile. Professional courtesy, Mr. Harmon. Never sign anything that creates definitive proof of culpability. Wade nodded, unsurprised. As you wish. Jack will escort you to a waiting car. Your possessions from the hotel will be delivered to local authorities as evidence. As Jack approached to escort him out, Dominic paused beside Natalie. Sentiment makes you weak, he told her quietly. Remember that when you're facing this alone. After Dominic had been escorted out, Wade turned to Natalie, who still sat with pen poised over the unsigned documents. And your decision? Natalie looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. If I sign these, I'll never see them again. Never know what happens in their lives. That's correct, Wade confirmed. Clean breaks heal better than ragged ones. Trevor and Zoe deserve to move forward without the constant uncertainty of whether you might reappear and disrupt their lives again. Natalie's hand trembled. Could I? Would you accept letters? Birthday cards? Something they could have when they're older, if they want them. Wade considered this, thinking of what Dr. Torres might advise about future healing. You can send them to my attorney. I'll keep them until the children are adults and can decide for themselves whether they want that connection. Natalie nodded, seeming to find a measure of peace in this small concession. Then, with a determined movement, she signed each document in turn, her signature growing steadier with each page. When she finished, the notary stepped forward to witness and stamp the documents. Natalie watched this final validation of her choice with an expression of both grief and relief. What happens now? She asked quietly. You'll be escorted to the airport. Your belongings from the hotel will be delivered to you there, minus any items purchased with stolen funds. You'll board a flight to the destination of your choice within the continental United States, with sufficient funds to establish a modest new beginning. Natalie nodded, accepting these terms. As she rose to leave, she paused, looking at Wade directly for the first time since the confrontation began. I do love them, she said softly. In my own way. I just couldn't be what they needed. Wade met her gaze steadily. Then this is the most loving thing you've ever done for them. As she was escorted from the room, Wade gathered the signed documents. The confrontation had gone almost exactly as planned. Dominic choosing flight and likely prosecution, Natalie choosing to provide closure through legal surrender. Within hours, the authorities would receive anonymous evidence packages detailing Dominic's crimes. Within days, international warrants would ensure he found no safe haven in his usual territories. And Natalie would begin a new life far from her children, carrying the consequences of her choices in a way that finally spared those children further pain. Wade contacted Victoria, confirming the documents had been signed as required. Dominic refused, as expected, he reported. Release the evidence to authorities as planned. Already in motion, Victoria confirmed. And Natalie? Full compliance. Parental rights relinquished, confession signed, financial restitution agreed to. She made the right choice, Victoria noted. For once, Wade agreed. When all was finally settled, Wade stood alone in the villa's main room, the screens now dark, the evidence secured. He felt not triumph, but completion, a mission successfully concluded, objectives achieved, protection established. Jack returned from escorting Natalie to the airport. It's done. She's en route to Chicago. Requested a fresh start somewhere her past won't follow her. Wade nodded. And our surveillance confirms Dominic is attempting to leave the country? Yes. He's booked on a flight to Monaco departing in 3 hours. Authorities have been notified and will intercept him at the gate. Perfect. Wade gathered his materials. I need to get back to the children. They'll be expecting me for dinner. As they left the villa, Wade took one final look at the place where justice had finally been secured. The trap had closed exactly as planned, not with violence or vengeance, but with truth and consequences delivered. It was finished. His children were safe. The future, their future, could finally begin. Chapter 9, Justice Served. 1 year later, the moving truck departed, leaving Wade, Trevor, and Zoe standing in the driveway of their new home in Portland, Oregon. The 2-story Craftsman house with its welcoming front porch and established garden represented more than just a change of location. It symbolized their fresh start. Can I set up my telescope in the backyard? Trevor asked, studying the open space with approval. At 10, he'd grown several inches in the past year, his frame beginning to lose the childish softness, though his serious expression remained a constant. Absolutely, Wade replied. The listing mentioned minimal light pollution, one of the reasons I chose this neighborhood. Zoe tugged at Wade's hand. Is my room really purple like in the pictures? Lavender, just as requested. Wade confirmed, smiling at his daughter's excitement. At 7, Zoe had blossomed in ways that sometimes took his breath away, her resilience transforming gradually from fragile coping to genuine strength. Dr. Torres had called their progression remarkable, though she cautioned that healing wasn't linear. There will still be difficult days, she'd warned during their final session in California. Birthdays, holidays, milestones, these can trigger grief even years later. But they have the tools now to process those feelings in healthy ways. The decision to relocate had come after careful consideration. Wade's medical leave had eventually transitioned to resignation from Blackstone Financial, followed by consulting work he could perform remotely. The children had shown tremendous progress, but certain spaces in their Woodside home remained haunted by memories. The bedroom where Natalie's video had played, the school where they'd been abandoned. A fresh start seemed the logical next step in their healing journey. Inside the house, they explored rooms filled with a mix of familiar furniture and new pieces chosen to mark this transition. Wade had involved both children in the decorating decisions, allowing them to create spaces that felt both safe and expressive of their evolving identities. Trevor's room featured a wall-mounted board for his growing chess trophy collection, space for his astronomy equipment, and bookshelves already filled organized library. The martial arts certificates displayed prominently near his desk testified to another positive development from the past year. After they'd settled in Portland, Trevor had spotted a jiu-jitsu studio near their new home and asked to try a class. The disciplined physical activity had provided an outlet for emotions he still struggled to verbalize. Wade had joined him, creating another bond between father and son. "Dad, can we put the telescope together tonight?" Trevor asked, already unpacking books and arranging them by category. "Weather forecast looks perfect for stargazing," Wade agreed. "Let's target 8 p.m. for setup." Zoe's room reflected her artistic evolution, an easel positioned to catch the northern light, storage for her growing collection of supplies, and a display wall for her colorful creations. Her natural talent had been identified by her art teacher 6 months earlier, leading to enrollment in a specialized weekend program where she had flourished. "Look, Daddy, Mr. Flopsy likes his new home." Zoe arranged her beloved stuffed rabbit on the window seat, positioning him to gaze out at the maple tree in the yard. Mr. Flopsy had remained Zoe's constant companion, though she no longer needed him to sleep through the night. Now he served as audience for her stories and artistic endeavors, a bridge between her past and present. After helping the children organize their most essential belongings, Wade left them to their unpacking and moved to his home office. The space was arranged with dual purpose, financial consulting work that provided their income, and the heart of his newer mission, reclaimed. The organization had grown from concept to reality in just 8 months. Using a portion of the funds recovered from Natalie's restitution agreement, Wade had established a foundation providing legal, financial, and emotional support to parents and children dealing with family abandonment. Victoria Chun had joined as legal director, bringing her expertise in family law and international finance to help others navigate situations similar to Wade's. They'd already assisted 27 families, providing everything from emergency financial support to therapy referrals to legal representation. Wade's phone rang. "Jack, checking on their arrival." "The security system is active," Wade reported after exchanging greetings. "Everything transferred smoothly." "Excellent. I vetted the local contacts as promised. Full background checks, all clear." Jack paused. "How are the kids handling the move?" "Better than expected. Trevor's already planning a stargazing session, and Zoe's organizing her art supplies by color and texture." "And you?" Wade glanced at the framed photograph on his desk, the 3 of them on a hiking trip 3 months earlier, all genuinely smiling. "I'm good, Jack. Really good." After finishing his call, Wade checked his email. Among the business correspondence was a message from Christine with the subject line, "Update as promised." He opened it, scanning the now familiar monthly report. "Wait. Natalie continues her waitressing job at the diner in Fargo. Her manager reports she's their most reliable employee, never misses a shift. She's still attending therapy twice weekly and has joined a support group for parents estranged from their children. She's maintained the small apartment near the community college where she's taking business administration classes in the evenings. No romantic relationships that I'm aware of." The enclosed card arrived yesterday for Trevor's birthday next month. As always, I forwarded it without reading the contents. Same arrangement as the previous ones. Your attorney will hold it until the children are adults and can decide whether they want to see it. Take care. Christine. Wade filed the email in his dedicated folder. He hadn't asked Christine to monitor Natalie. She had volunteered, feeling it provided closure for her own role in the situation. The information was never shared with the children, stored away like the birthday cards and occasional letters that arrived through Victoria's office. His news alerts pinged with an update that brought a grim satisfaction. The headline read, "International Fraudster Sentenced to 15 years in Monaco Prison." The article detailed Dominic Reeves's conviction on multiple charges of fraud, money laundering, and wire fraud. He'd been arrested in Monaco 11 months earlier while attempting to establish a relationship with a wealthy widow. His typical pattern interrupted by the anonymous evidence packages Wade had delivered to authorities. Prosecutors in 3 countries had competed for jurisdiction, with Monaco ultimately prevailing due to the severity of his financial crimes there. The judge had cited Dominic's pattern of deliberate predation upon vulnerable individuals in handing down the maximum sentence. Wade closed the article. Justice had found Dominic, as he'd always known it would once the evidence was in the right hands. The man's network of criminal connections had abandoned him quickly once his assets were frozen and his operation exposed. Without money or power, Dominic had discovered how quickly such alliances dissolved. A knock at his office door interrupted his thoughts. Trevor stood in the doorway, his expression hesitant. "Dad, there's a package that was delivered to the front porch. It's addressed to all of us." Wade followed his son to the entrance where a medium-sized box sat waiting. The return address showed Dr. Torres's practice in California. "Let's open it together," Wade suggested, carrying the package to the kitchen where Zoe was already arranging her collection of art magnets on the refrigerator. Inside, they found 3 carefully wrapped items and a note in Dr. Torres's handwriting. "Wade, Trevor, and Zoe. Housewarming gifts to mark new beginnings. The journey continues, but look how far you've already come. With admiration, Abigail Torres." Trevor's gift was a chess set carved from stone, the pieces representing celestial bodies, planets for pawns, cosmic phenomena for the major pieces. Zoe received a professional-grade set of watercolors in a wooden case with her name engraved on the lid. Wade's package contained a framed quote, "Healing is not the absence of pain, but the presence of growth alongside it." "Dr. Torres is nice," Zoe declared, already opening her watercolors. "Can I paint something for her to say thank you?" "That's a wonderful idea," Wade agreed. "She'd appreciate that very much." As the children explored their gifts, Wade reflected on Dr. Torres's continued presence in their lives. Though their formal therapy had concluded, she remained a touchstone, checking in monthly and providing referrals to qualified colleagues in Portland. The boundaries were clear and professional, but the connection was genuine. The rest of the day passed in the organized chaos of unpacking. By evening, the essential living areas were functional, if not fully arranged. After dinner at the kitchen island, their dining tables still partially disassembled, Wade and Trevor set up the telescope in the backyard while Zoe arranged her art supplies in meticulous rainbow order. Later, as Wade tucked Zoe into bed in her new room, she asked the question he'd been half expecting since the move began. "Daddy, does Mom know we moved to Portland?" Wade sat on the edge of her bed, considering his response carefully. "No, sweetheart. Remember our discussions about fresh starts?" Zoe nodded solemnly. "Like when you plant new seeds, you need fresh soil." "That's right. This move is part of our fresh start. Does that mean we'll never see her again?" Zoe's voice was curious rather than distressed, a significant evolution from the panic such questions had once triggered. "That's a decision you and Trevor can make when you're older," Wade explained. The answer developed with Dr. Torres's guidance. "For now, we're focusing on building our new life here." Zoe seemed satisfied with this response. "I like our new house, and I'm going to make lots of friends at my new school." "I know you will." Wade kissed her forehead. "Sleep well, Zoe Bear." Before leaving, he adjusted her night light, no longer required but maintained as a comfortable routine, and made sure Mr. Flopsy was tucked in beside her. In Trevor's room, the conversation took a different direction. "Dad, I've been thinking about Mom lately." Trevor sat cross-legged on his bed, hands fidgeting with a small telescope component. Wade sat beside him, giving his son space to express thoughts that had clearly been developing for some time. "What kind of thoughts?" he asked. "Not sad ones, really. Just," Trevor searched for words. "I used to be so angry. I wanted her to hurt like we hurt." Wade nodded, letting him continue. "But now, I mostly feel sorry for her." Trevor looked up, his eyes reflecting a wisdom beyond his years. "She's missing everything. My tournaments, Zoe's art show, our new house. She chose to miss all of it." "That's a very mature perspective," Wade said quietly. Trevor shrugged. "Sensei Chin talks about how anger hurts the person feeling it more than the person it's directed at. I think that's true. It often is." "I don't want to see her," Trevor clarified quickly. "I just don't hate her anymore." "Is that okay?" Wade put his arm around his son's shoulders. It's more than okay, Trevor. It's healing. After both children were settled, Wade completed a final security check of their new home before retiring to his own bedroom. The space was deliberately different from his room in Woodside, different furniture arrangement, different color scheme, different view from the windows. Nothing to trigger associations with the past. On his nightstand sat the most recent family photograph, taken during a weekend trip to the coast. Trevor and Zoe stood with him on a rocky outcropping, all three smiling genuinely, the ocean stretching behind them. Their body language told the story of their journey. Zoe no longer clinging desperately to Wade, Trevor's posture open rather than defensively closed. They looked like what they had become, a family reconfigured but intact, bonded through shared experience and deliberate healing. Wade's phone chimed with a message from Jack. Security sweep complete. All systems operational. Welcome home, Harmons. The next morning brought the first day of their new routine. Wade woke early, completed his now habitual workout in the home gym he'd established in the basement, and prepared breakfast before waking the children. Though no longer driven by the urgent need for physical transformation, he'd maintained the discipline of regular training, a practice that grounded him and provided stress management. Trevor emerged from his room already dressed for the day, his backpack neatly packed for his first day at the new school. Zoe followed, her outfit carefully chosen the night before. Purple leggings and a unicorn shirt that was currently her favorite. Everyone ready for new adventures? Wade asked, placing plates of breakfast before them. I mapped the fastest route to school yesterday, Trevor reported, and memorized my schedule. I'm going to draw a picture of our new house for my teacher, Zoe announced, already visualizing the project. After breakfast, Wade drove them to Portland Academy, the private school he'd selected for its excellent academic reputation and robust support services. The admissions director greeted them personally, having been briefed on the children's background and needs. Trevor, Ms. Chun is waiting to show you to the advanced math classroom, she explained. And Zoe, Ms. Winters is excited to welcome you to the second grade art enrichment program. Wade watched as his children were escorted to their respective classrooms, noting the absence of the separation anxiety that would have been insurmountable a year earlier. Both turned to wave before disappearing down the hallway, confident, ready for this next step. Returning home, Wade settled into his office to begin his workday. The morning was dedicated to consulting calls with financial clients, the afternoon to Reclaim's expanding caseload. At 3 o'clock, his calendar reminder appeared. Check news track alerts. This daily practice had become part of his routine, monitoring for any mentions of Dominic, Natalie, or related legal proceedings. Today's alert contained a small item from a local Fargo newspaper. Local waitress receives Community Service Award for work with children's reading program. The accompanying photo showed Natalie in her diner uniform, accepting a certificate from the library director. She looked different, her previously highlighted hair now its natural darker blonde, her makeup minimal, her expression containing none of the artificial charm she'd once projected. The caption noted her volunteer work reading to children at the community center. Wade studied the image without resentment or anger, simply observing this new iteration of the woman who had been his wife. Whatever journey Natalie was on now, it appeared to be one of genuine change rather than manipulation. He saved the article to Christine's monitoring file without comment. The children's first day at school proved successful. Trevor reported that the chess club had immediately invited him to join after learning of his tournament record. Zoe had made a friend named Olivia who shared her passion for unicorns and painting. That evening, as Wade helped Trevor with an advanced science project while Zoe worked on a welcome card for their new neighbors, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mr. Harmon? This is Detective Salazar from Monaco National Police. I wanted to inform you personally that the appeal in the Reeves case has been denied. The 15-year sentence stands without possibility of early parole. Thank you for the update, Detective. I appreciate your thoroughness in this matter. The evidence packages you provided were instrumental in securing justice. 3 other victims have received financial restitution from seized assets. After completing the call, Wade felt a sense of completion. Dominic's chapter was closed definitively. The man would spend the prime years of his life in prison, his network dismantled, his pattern of destruction interrupted permanently. As summer progressed into fall, the Harmons established new traditions in their Portland home. Saturday morning martial arts classes for Wade and Trevor. Sunday afternoon art workshops for Zoe at the community center. Family hiking trips exploring Oregon's natural beauty. Trevor joined both the chess team and the astronomy club at school, finding peer connections that supported his intellectual interests. His nightmares had decreased to rare occurrences, usually triggered by specific stress rather than generalized anxiety. Zoe's artwork began winning recognition in school exhibitions, her style evolving to express emotions she sometimes still struggled to verbalize. Mr. Flopsy remained her constant companion, but was now often depicted in her paintings rather than clutched as a security object. Wade balanced his consulting work with growing involvement in Reclaimed, which had expanded to open a small Portland office. The Foundation's success stories provided ongoing confirmation that healing was possible even after profound betrayal. Jack visited monthly, ostensibly to check security systems, but primarily to maintain his relationship with the children. He had indeed become a surrogate uncle, taking Trevor fishing and attending Zoe's art exhibitions with genuine interest. On a crisp October morning, Wade received a call from Trevor's jiu-jitsu instructor. "Mr. Harmon, I wanted to personally invite you to Trevor's upcoming tournament. He's qualified for the regional championship in his age group." "That's fantastic news. When is the event?" "Saturday, November 12th at Portland Community Center. Trevor's bracket competes at 2 p.m. Wade marked the date prominently on the family calendar displayed in the kitchen. These milestones, achievements that represented growth beyond survival, were celebrated with particular attention in the Harmon household. The tournament day arrived with perfect fall weather. Trevor was uncharacteristically nervous at breakfast, checking his gear bag multiple times. "What if I forget the techniques when I'm on the mat?" he asked Wade as they drove to the venue. "Then you'll adapt and use what you do remember," Wade replied. "Remember what Sensei Chin says. The obstacle becomes the way." Trevor finished, taking a deep breath. "Right." Zoe sat in the back seat, working on a good luck card for her brother. "I'm making you winning the trophy, Trevor," she explained, holding up her drawing. "So it has to happen." The community center was filled with competitors and their families. Trevor reported to his age group's staging area, while Wade and Zoe found seats in the spectator section. Jack arrived minutes later, bringing Trevor's favorite sports drink and high-protein snacks for after his matches. As Trevor's division was called, Wade watched his son step onto the mat with the composure and focus that had always been his natural gift, now channeled into productive mastery rather than emotional suppression. The matches progressed through the afternoon, Trevor advancing through preliminary rounds that drew appreciative comments from other parents. His final match pitted him against a slightly larger boy with 2 years more experience. Wade, Zoe, and Jack cheered enthusiastically as Trevor executed a perfect sweep, transitioning smoothly to secure position. When the referee raised Trevor's hand in victory, his smile of genuine pride and accomplishment was a gift beyond measure. As they exited the community center, Trevor clutching his trophy while receiving congratulations from teammates, Wade felt a prickling sensation at the back of his neck, the situational awareness from his military days that had never fully disappeared. He scanned the area casually, his gaze finally landing on a figure standing across the street. Natalie. She wore simple jeans and a practical jacket, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Nothing remained of the polished, sophisticated woman who had once prioritized appearance above authenticity. She made no attempt to approach or hide, simply standing watching the celebration from a distance. Wade met her eyes across the space between them. In that momentary connection, a wealth of unspoken communication passed. Not forgiveness, that would require atonement beyond what had occurred, but acknowledgement. Recognition of what she had forfeited through her choices. When Natalie took a step forward as if to approach, Wade's expression stopped her instantly. Not with anger or hostility, but with something more definitive, complete closure. The silent message was clear. You made your choice, and this is your consequence. She remained frozen for several seconds, then nodded once, accepting the boundary, before turning and walking away. Wade didn't mention the sighting to the children, who were wholly focused on celebrating Trevor's victory. That evening, they had a special dinner at Trevor's favorite restaurant, where Jack presented him with a custom display case for his growing collection of tournament medals. Later, after the children were asleep, Wade sat on the back porch of their new home, considering the day's unexpected encounter. He felt no disturbance to his peace, no reopening of old wounds. Natalie's appearance had been meaningless compared to the significance of Trevor's achievement and Zoe's joyful support of her brother. The moon rose over their Portland neighborhood, illuminating the telescope Trevor had set up earlier that week. Wade thought about the journey they had traveled, from shattered reality to rebuilt lives, from trauma to resilience, from victims to survivors. Not perfect, not without ongoing challenges, but whole in a new configuration, strengthened by what they had overcome together. Wade smiled as he looked up at the stars visible even through the city lights. They had reclaimed their future, transforming betrayal into growth, abandonment into closer bonds. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything since that fateful day, together, with courage and determination. They were, at last, truly free. Epilogue, a future reclaimed. 15 years later. The University of Washington's graduation ceremony concluded with the traditional tossing of caps, a flurry of blue against the clear Seattle sky. Among the dispersing crowd, Wade Harmon, now 56, straightened his tie as he scanned the sea of graduates for a familiar face. "Dad, over here." Wade turned to see Zoe waving enthusiastically, her academic robes billowing as she navigated through the crowd. At 21, she had blossomed into a poised young woman with her mother's blonde hair, but her father's steady gaze. Her graduation with honors in fine arts and psychology represented another milestone in the journey they had traveled together. "There's my graduate," Wade said, embracing his daughter. "Summa cum laude. I couldn't be prouder." "Thanks for not crying during the ceremony," Zoe teased, adjusting the honor cords around her neck. "Though I saw you getting suspiciously misty-eyed when they called my name." "Allergies," Wade insisted with a smile. "Pollen count is high today." A tall young man in a tailored suit approached them, his dark hair neatly trimmed, his bearing reflecting the discipline he'd maintained since childhood. Trevor, now 24, had graduated from MIT 2 years earlier and already distinguished himself at a prestigious quantum computing firm in Seattle. "Sorry I'm late," Trevor said, hugging his sister. "Traffic was impossible." "Congratulations, Zoe. You killed it." "Language, Trevor." Zoe mimicked their father's tone perfectly, causing all three to laugh. Wade observed his children with quiet satisfaction. The frightened, traumatized children of 15 years ago had grown into remarkable adults, resilient, accomplished, and most importantly, happy. The scars remained, as Dr. Torres had predicted, but they had become part of their strength rather than ongoing wounds. "The reservation is for 1 o'clock, Wade reminded them. "Jack and Dr. Torres are already at the restaurant." "And Diane?" Zoe asked with a knowing glance at her father. "Yes, Diane will be joining us," Wade confirmed, unable to suppress a small smile. Diane Phillips had entered Wade's life 4 years earlier through Reclaimed, the organization he had founded to support families affected by abandonment. As the foundation's development director, she'd initially collaborated with Wade professionally before their relationship evolved into something deeper. A widow with grown children of her own, she understood the complexities of blended family dynamics and had patiently allowed Trevor and Zoe time to accept her presence in their father's life. Zoe linked her arm through Wade's as they walked toward the parking area. "I'm glad she's coming. She makes you happy." "She does," Wade acknowledged. "Though you and Trevor will always be my priority." "Dad, we're adults now," Trevor reminded him. "It's okay for you to have your own life." Wade patted his son's shoulder, still sometimes surprised by the maturity that had replaced Trevor's childhood stoicism. "When did you get so wise?" "MIT does that to people," Trevor replied with a straight face. "It's in the course catalog, Wisdom 101. The restaurant overlooked Puget Sound, its elegant private dining room already occupied by those closest to the Harmon family. Jack Winters, now in his 60s with gray hair but still fit and alert, was engaged in animated conversation with Dr. Abigail Torres, whose therapy practice had expanded to include 3 locations specializing in familial trauma recovery. "There she is," Jack exclaimed as Zoe entered the room. "The artist of the hour." Dr. Torres embraced Zoe warmly. "Congratulations, Zoe. Your exhibition pieces were extraordinary." The university gallery curator told me they're already fielding inquiries from commercial galleries. Zoe blushed at the praise. Her thesis exhibition, a series exploring childhood resilience through mixed media, had garnered significant attention in the Seattle art community. "Thanks for coming all the way from Portland," she told Dr. Torres. "It means a lot." "I wouldn't have missed it," Dr. Torres assured her. "I've watched you and Trevor grow from children into exceptional adults. That's a privilege few therapists get to experience." Victoria Chin arrived moments later, elegant in a tailored suit that reflected her position as Reclaim's executive director. The organization had grown from Wade's initial concept into a national nonprofit with offices in 7 cities, providing comprehensive support to families shattered by abandonment. "Sorry I'm late," Victoria apologized. "I was finalizing the details for next month's congressional testimony." "Wade, the committee is particularly interested in your statistics on the financial impacts of family abandonment." Wade nodded. "I'll review the presentation next week. Today is about celebrating Zoe." Diane Phillips, a warm-eyed woman in her early 50s, was the last to arrive, bringing with her a beautifully wrapped package. "Congratulations, Zoe," she said, kissing the young woman's cheek. "This is just a small token for your achievement." Inside was a vintage set of Japanese brushes in a lacquered box. "These belong to an artist I represented at my gallery in Chicago," Diane explained. "She wanted them to go to someone with genuine talent when she retired." Zoe ran her fingers over the delicate brushes. "They're exquisite. Thank you." As the celebratory lunch progressed, conversation flowed easily among this chosen family that had formed around the core of Wade, Trevor, and Zoe. Jack regaled them with stories from his semi-retirement teaching at a security academy. Dr. Torres shared anecdotes from her latest book, Tour Promoting Trauma Recovery Methodologies. Victoria discussed Reclaim's expanding influence in family law reform. Trevor, seated beside Wade, spoke quietly during a lull in the conversation. "I got an interesting call yesterday from Christine Delacruz." Wade's attention sharpened. Though Christine had maintained sporadic contact over the years, her communications had decreased as the children reached adulthood. "She asked if I'd be open to meeting with her when I'm next in California," Trevor continued. "I think we both know what that's about." Wade nodded, keeping his expression neutral despite the sudden tightness in his chest. "And what did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it." Trevor studied his water glass thoughtfully. "It's time, Dad. I'm ready to read the letters." For 15 years, Wade had honored his agreement with Natalie. Birthday cards, occasional letters, even graduation congratulations had been dutifully forwarded to Victoria's office, where they remained sealed and stored until Trevor and Zoe reached adulthood and could decide whether to acknowledge them. "Are you sure?" Wade asked carefully. "There's no timeline for this decision." "I'm sure." Trevor met his father's gaze with the quiet confidence that had become his hallmark. "I made peace with what happened years ago. Reading her letters won't change that." Wade squeezed his son's shoulder, respecting the decision while acknowledging the complexity of emotions it might trigger. "Whatever you need, I'm here." "I know, Dad. You always have been." Later that evening, after the celebration had concluded and guests had departed, the core Harmon family returned to Wade's Seattle condominium where they'd gathered for the graduation weekend. While Zoe showered and Trevor made business calls, Wade stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city lights, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. Reclaimed had grown beyond his initial vision, helping thousands of families navigate the devastating aftermath of abandonment. The organization now offered legal advocacy, financial planning, therapeutic services, and peer support networks. Wade had transitioned from direct management to board chairman 5 years earlier, allowing him to focus on advocacy work and speaking engagements, sharing his family's story to help others. His phone chimed with a notification, a news alert about Dominic Reeves. Wade had maintained monitoring services all these years, though the frequency of alerts had diminished significantly. "Former international fraudster Dominic Reeves dies in prison," the headline read. The brief article noted that Reeves, 62, had died of complications from pneumonia while serving his 15th year of a 15-year sentence in Monaco's central prison. No family members were listed as survivors. Wade felt no satisfaction at the news, only a distant acknowledgement that a chapter had definitively closed. He forwarded the article to Jack and Victoria, then deleted it. Dominic Reeves had ceased to matter in their lives long ago. The balcony door slid open behind him. Zoe joined him at the railing, wrapped in a University of Washington sweatshirt despite the mild June evening. "Everything okay, Dad? You look pensive." "Just reflecting," Wade replied. Proud father thoughts. Zoe leaned against his shoulder, a gesture she'd maintained since childhood. "Trevor told me about Christine's call. About the letters. And how do you feel about that?" "Not ready," Zoe admitted. "Not yet. Maybe someday, but not now." Wade nodded, respecting her different timeline. "There's no rush. They'll be there when and if you want them." They stood in comfortable silence, watching aircraft lights drift across the darkening sky. Finally, Zoe spoke again, her voice thoughtful. "I've been thinking about what comes next. After graduate school." "The Seattle Art Institute seemed enthusiastic about your application," Wade noted. "They were, but I'm considering something different." Zoe turned to face him directly. "I want to work with Reclaimed. Specifically, developing art therapy programs for children processing abandonment trauma." Wade studied his daughter, seeing in her expression the same determined compassion that had guided his own path. "You'd be extraordinary at that. But are you sure it's what you want?" "Not what you think I want. It's definitely what I want," Zoe assured him. "My thesis exhibition helped me realize it. Those pieces weren't just art. They were processing my own experience while creating something that resonated with others who faced similar trauma. If that's your path, you know you'll have my complete support." "I know." Zoe smiled, her expression reflecting her name's meaning, life. "That's never been in question." Trevor joined them, his business call completed. At his approach, Wade noticed again how much his son resembled him physically, the same tall frame and serious eyes, while having developed a confidence Wade hadn't acquired until much later in life. "Everything okay out here?" Trevor asked. "You both look serious." "Just discussing future plans," Zoe explained. "The post-graduation existential crisis portion of the evening." "Ah, I remember that phase." Trevor leaned against the railing. "It passes." Wade observed his children bantering, marveling at their resilience. Despite everything, they had grown into balanced, successful adults capable of both serious purpose and genuine joy. It was the outcome he had fought for through those darkest days 15 years earlier. "By the way," Trevor said, turning to Wade, "I've scheduled a meeting with Victoria next week. I want to discuss establishing a scholarship fund through Reclaimed for children of abandonment pursuing STEM education." "That's a wonderful idea," Wade responded, genuinely touched by his son's initiative. "Victoria will be thrilled." "It's time I did more than just donate," Trevor explained. "The organization helped us. I want to extend that help to others." Inside, Wade's phone rang. The caller ID displayed a number that triggered immediate recognition. Christine Delacruz, calling unexpectedly late. "Excuse me," he said to his children. "I should take this." In his home office, Wade answered the call with a sense of foreboding. Christine rarely called directly these days, especially outside business hours. "Wade." Her voice confirmed his concerns, tense, emotional. "I'm sorry to call so late. It's about Natalie." A familiar tightness gripped his chest. "What's happened?" "She's in the hospital. Advanced pancreatic cancer. The doctors say weeks, maybe days." Christine paused. "She's asked to see them, Wade. One time before she dies." Wade closed his eyes, processing the implications. For 15 years, he had protected Trevor and Zoe, initially from further trauma, later respecting their autonomy to decide what relationship, if any, they wanted with the mother who had abandoned them. "Have you told them yet?" Christine asked when his silence stretched. "No. Trevor mentioned your call, but not this." "I thought you should tell them," Christine explained. "They'll need time to process and decide." "Yes," Wade agreed. "Thank you for calling." After hanging up, Wade remained at his desk, considering how to approach this situation. Trevor and Zoe were adults now, capable of making their own decisions about whether to see Natalie. His role was no longer protector, but supporter of whatever choice they made. He returned to the balcony where his children were still talking, their conversation pausing as they noted his expression. "Dad? What is it?" Zoe asked, instantly alert to his mood. "That was Christine," Wade said carefully. "She called about your mother." He explained the situation simply, without editorial comment, presenting only the facts they needed to make their decision. As he spoke, he watched their expressions, Trevor's face settling into thoughtful consideration, Zoe's more openly emotional. "You're both adults. Wade concluded. This is entirely your decision. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. Do you think we should go? Zoe asked, her voice smaller than usual. Wade chose his words with care. That's not for me to say. This is about what you need, not what anyone else thinks you should do. Trevor placed a protective arm around his sister's shoulders. We don't have to decide tonight. Let's sleep on it. Later that night, after Trevor and Zoe had retired to their rooms, Wade sat in his living room with a glass of scotch, memories surfacing unbidden. Natalie as she'd been when they first met, young, vibrant, seemingly genuine. The early years of their marriage before the facade began to crack. The devastating betrayal that had almost destroyed their family. And now, 15 years later, she was dying, making a final request to see the children she had abandoned. Wade wasn't surprised when his bedroom door opened around midnight. Trevor entered, followed by Zoe, both looking as they had years ago when nightmares drove them to seek his reassurance. We can't sleep, Zoe admitted, curling into the corner of the sofa. Understandable, Wade acknowledged. It's a lot to process. Trevor remained standing, hands in the pockets of his sweatpants. I'm going to see her, he said finally. Not for her sake, but for mine. To close that chapter completely. Zoe looked up at her brother, then at Wade. If Trevor's going, I'll go too. But I don't want to be alone with her. You won't be, Trevor assured her. We'll go together. And I'll be there if you want me to, Wade added. Or I can wait nearby. Whatever makes this easier for you both. Zoe nodded gratefully. I'd feel better if you were close by. Trevor addressed the practical aspects, characteristically focused on logistics. How soon should we go? Where is she? She's in Fargo, Wade explained. As for timing, Christine indicated sooner rather than later would be advisable. I'll change my flight back to Boston, Trevor decided. Zoe, can you postpone your graduate school orientation? It's not until next month, she confirmed. I'm free. Wade watched his children planning, their approach considered rather than reactive. They'd grown into adults who faced difficult situations with thoughtfulness and courage, perhaps the most significant testament to their healing journey. Dad, Zoe's voice interrupted his thoughts. What about you? Are you okay with this? The question touched him deeply, his adult daughter considering his emotional needs in this complex situation. I made my peace with Natalie years ago, he assured her truthfully. This isn't about me. It's about what you and Trevor need for your own closure. 3 days later, Wade stood in the corridor of Mercy Hospital in Fargo, North Dakota, watching Trevor and Zoe through the window of Natalie's room. They had decided he should wait outside, available if needed, but giving them privacy for this final encounter with their mother. Through the glass, Wade could see Natalie propped up in the hospital bed, her once vibrant presence diminished by illness. Her hair, now completely gray, lay limp against the pillow. The sophisticated beauty that had once been her armor was stripped away, leaving only fragility and the hollow-eyed awareness of impending death. Trevor stood at the foot of the bed, his posture straight, his expression compassionate but controlled. Zoe sat in a chair beside the bed, fidgeting with the edge of her cardigan, her emotional struggle more visible. Wade couldn't hear their conversation, but he observed the interaction closely, Natalie speaking with evident effort, Trevor nodding occasionally, Zoe wiping tears from her cheeks. After 15 minutes, Trevor moved to stand beside his sister, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder as they prepared to leave. Before they did, Natalie reached for something on her bedside table, a small box that she handed to Trevor with trembling hands. He accepted it with a nod, then leaned down when she appeared to ask something. After a moment's hesitation, he allowed her to touch his cheek briefly, not quite an embrace, but a final human contact. Zoe remained more distant, managing only a brief touch of Natalie's hand before retreating to the door. The goodbye was short, dignified, without dramatic displays from either side. When they emerged into the corridor, Wade saw the emotional toll in their expressions, not devastation, but the complex mixture of grief, resolution, and lingering questions that such encounters inevitably produce. You okay? He asked simply. Trevor nodded, the small box clutched in his hand. She apologized, said she's been in therapy for years, trying to understand why she did what she did. She looks so different, Zoe said quietly. So ordinary. Wade put an arm around each of them, guiding them toward the elevator. Do you want to talk about it now or later? Later, they decided in unison. Outside the hospital, in the crisp Fargo air, Trevor finally opened the box Natalie had given him. Inside was a folded piece of paper and 2 items of jewelry, a sapphire ring and a pearl necklace. Her grandmother's jewelry, Trevor explained, reading the note. She wants us to have them. Says they're the only things of value she has left to give us. The irony, Zoe said softly. She came back for that jewelry 15 years ago. Now she's giving it to us. Trevor handed the necklace to his sister. She specifically said this was for you. Apparently, you used to play with it as a little girl. Zoe accepted the pearls, running them through her fingers with a distant expression. I don't remember that. There's something else, Trevor added, extracting a key from the bottom of the box. To a storage unit here in Fargo. She said it contains things she's saved for us over the years. Photos, news clippings about our achievements, keepsakes. A shrine to the family she abandoned, Wade observed, unable to keep the edge from his voice despite his best efforts. She said she's been following our lives from a distance, Zoe explained. Not stalking, just keeping track through public information. My art exhibitions, Trevor's published research. Does that bother you? Wade asked carefully. Trevor considered the question. Not really. It doesn't change anything. What do you want to do about the storage unit? Wade asked. Not today, Zoe decided. Maybe before we leave Fargo. Or maybe never. I don't know. The following morning, as they prepared to check out of their hotel, Christine arrived to meet them for breakfast. At 64, she retained the direct manner and sharp intelligence that had characterized her interaction with the Harmon family from the beginning. How did it go? She asked without preamble once they were seated. As well as could be expected, Trevor replied. Thank you for arranging it. Christine nodded. Natalie asked me to give you this if you came. She placed an envelope on the table. It's not another apology letter. It's practical information. Her will, funeral arrangements, that sort of thing. She's leaving everything to us? Zoe asked, surprised. There isn't much, Christine explained. The medical bills took most of what she had. There's a small life insurance policy that should cover the funeral costs with perhaps a little left over. We don't need or want her money, Trevor said firmly. I told her that, Christine assured him. She understands. This is more about tying up loose ends so you don't have to deal with practical matters after she's gone. Wade appreciated Natalie's foresight in this regard. One final act of consideration to spare their children additional stress. Perhaps it was the closest thing to genuine mothering she had managed in 15 years. She asked about you, Wade, Christine added. Wanted to know if you'd found happiness. What did you tell her? The truth. That you built something meaningful from what she destroyed. That you're respected, successful, and yes, happy. Wade nodded, satisfied with this summary of his life's second act. Thank you for being the bridge all these years, Christine. It couldn't have been easy. It was the right thing to do, she replied simply. For all of you. 2 weeks later, Wade received notification of Natalie's death, peaceful, in her sleep, with a hospice nurse in attendance. Trevor and Zoe, having returned to their respective cities, acknowledged the news with quiet reflection rather than renewed grief. Are you coming to the funeral? Zoe asked during their family video call that evening. Do you want me to? Wade countered gently. No, Trevor answered. This is something Zoe and I should do ourselves. If you're comfortable with that. I am, Wade assured them. You're adults making your own choices about this relationship. My role is to support those choices, not direct them. The funeral was small, attended primarily by Natalie's co-workers from the diner and fellow members of her support group. Trevor and Zoe attended quietly, accepting condolences from people who knew a version of their mother they had never experienced, the humble, hard-working woman seeking redemption through small daily kindnesses. Before leaving Fargo, they visited the storage unit, discovering 15 years of carefully preserved connections to the lives she had observed from a distance. Newspaper clippings about Trevor's academic achievements, exhibition catalogs from Zoe's art shows, graduation programs, published articles. Most poignantly, they found copies of all the letters and cards she had sent through the years, along with a journal documenting her therapy journey and growing understanding of the damage she had caused. She really did change, Zoe said softly as they sorted through the materials. Too late for us, but she changed. People are complicated, Trevor observed, his analytical mind always seeking patterns and understanding. She made terrible choices that hurt us immeasurably. She also spent 15 years trying to atone in whatever limited way she could. They selected a few meaningful items to keep, donated what seemed appropriate to Natalie's support group for families seeking reconciliation, and closed the storage unit for the final time. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Wade hosted a dinner at his Seattle condominium. The occasion was significant. His engagement to Diane, formalized that afternoon with a simple proposal at the art gallery where they had first connected personally rather than professionally. Around the table sat the family they had created through both blood and choice. Trevor, home from Boston for the weekend. Zoe, thriving in graduate school while developing art therapy programs for Reclaimed. Jack, now officially retired but still keenly involved in their lives. Dr. Torres, whose professional relationship had evolved into genuine friendship over the years. Victoria, whose leadership had expanded Reclaimed's impact nationally. A toast, Trevor announced, raising his glass. To Dad and Diane, may your future together be filled with the happiness you both deserve. And to family, Zoe added, the one we were born into and the one we created. As glasses clinked and congratulations flowed, Wade surveyed the gathering with profound gratitude. The journey from that devastating day 15 years ago to this moment of genuine joy had been arduous, painful, and ultimately transformative. Later that evening, as the gathering wound down, Wade found himself on the balcony with Trevor, both enjoying the rare, clear Seattle night sky. I've been thinking about something Mom said during our visit, Trevor said, using the term mom for the first time in Wade's memory. About choices and consequences. What about them? Wade asked. She told me her biggest regret wasn't leaving, though she regretted that too, but not understanding that choices create ripples that affect everything that comes after. Trevor gazed at the city lights below. She said you understood that from the beginning, that every decision you made after she left was about minimizing the ripples of damage for Zoe and me. Wade considered this characterization of his parenting philosophy. I tried. Didn't always succeed, but I tried. You did more than try, Dad. Trevor turned to face him directly. You succeeded. You rebuilt our foundation when it was completely shattered. You showed us that betrayal isn't the end of the story. The simple acknowledgement touched Wade deeply. His son, now a man, recognizing the intention behind 15 years of dedicated parenting. Thank you for saying that, Wade said quietly. It means more than you know. Inside, laughter erupted as Jack recounted a story from their shared past, the warm sound flowing through the open balcony door. Trevor smiled at the familiar cadence of their chosen family's interaction. You know what I realized at Mom's funeral? He asked. That grief isn't just about loss. Sometimes it's about what never was and never could be. Wade nodded, understanding the complex emotion his son was articulating. And how do you feel about that now? At peace, Trevor said simply. I grieve the mother I never had years ago. Seeing her at the end, understanding her journey, it didn't change what happened, but it completed the circle somehow. They stood in companionable silence, father and son, reflecting on the long road traveled and the future stretching before them. A future built on conscious choices, resilience, and the unwavering commitment to create something meaningful from devastation. Inside, Diane appeared in the doorway. We're about to have dessert. Zoe's insisting we use the formal china since it's a special occasion. We'll be right there, Wade assured her, exchanging a warm smile with the woman who had patiently earned her place in their reconstructed family. As they moved to rejoin the gathering, Trevor paused. One more thing, Dad. Thank you for never making us choose sides. For giving us the space to find our own way through this, even at the end. You and Zoe deserved nothing less, Wade replied simply. You always will. The family assembled around the table as Zoe presented a cake decorated with her artistic flair. Looking at these beloved faces, his children now adults with their own strength and wisdom, the friends who had become family, the woman who had opened his heart again, Wade felt a sense of completion. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy them had instead become the foundation for something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more meaningful than what had existed before. Through conscious choice and unwavering commitment, they had reclaimed not just their present but their future, together, resilient, whole. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.